Hello and welcome to episode 261 of the FReality Podcast. Okay, so last podcast, Freddy Krueger joined and snipped his way through the episode, dicing the show into 7 bite-sized pieces. However, after resident surgeon Jose pieced that back together, we ended up with what I thought was quite a nice re-upload. If you were there and your PTSD has started to settle down 2 weeks later, well, then I'm glad you're healing. I, however, am scarred for life and will be taking it easy today. In today's show, here are our topics. First up, well, you died and you went to heaven. And at the pearly gamer gates, you see none other than Lord Gaben. Apple Vision Pro is for lonely megabuck millionaires who need friends. So let's give them one, eh? Don't have $1 million for a Vision Pro? Well, then like me, maybe you'd like a budget-savvy, gigantic Godzilla Pokemon to feed instead. XREAL also have a big tease just 5 days away. So grab your favorite chew toy and roll over. Good. Good dog. And finally, Virtual Desktop's Guy Godin says Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good flight. Jose's our shaman, leading our ayahuasca journey today, and he'll be sending you on a spiritual river cruise of releases towards the end of today's broadcast. So zen up. Next up, it's crew highlights. Rowdy, you're first up, Mr. Bookcase. How you doing?
Mr. Bookcase. Dear God, I have like one bookcase and it's been the topic of conversation pre-podcast.
You can't even see it in the four-way.
I know. People don't even know. Like, just imagine that there's a bookcase, right? You
look like I don't know, a member of the Illuminati or something. Your whole room is like lit up. You know, it's great.
You know why it's lit up is because I got my plant lights back and they need their sunlight. So there's not a lot of sun here.
Does that have any effect on humans though? Like, does that like give you a mild tan over the season? How does that work?
We'll know in a couple of months. No. I've been doing well. I've actually, the thing I wanted to highlight was actually there's 2 new things on Netflix that I started to watch. I haven't finished either of them. One thing is that we already talked about before. I think when they came out with the first season, which is now is the second season of Arcane is out. I don't know if you guys already saw it. I've been reading some mixed reviews about it. So far, I'm only like 2 episodes in. I've been enjoying it again. I think, again, it is of a quality, I think, that we don't see often coming out from, Netflix-produced anime shows.
That's the League of Legends animated one?
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But the story is just very, very well written, I think. Especially, the first season was probably one of the better ones that I had ever seen in terms of like the way that they build out the story, the way that they introduce music in there, because music is like a very big component throughout the entire series. They did a collaboration, I think, with Imagine Dragons. So their song "Enemy" was produced, which became a huge hit after that as well. Was like kind of like their theme song, and they're using that still in season 2 as well. But yeah, it's very gritty, very dark, I would say, which I always like in these kind of animes, but not in a way that it becomes depressing yet, at least. So it's I really like it. Really have been enjoying it. Highly recommend it. If you haven't seen the first season, definitely go and watch the first season. I don't know yet about the second season because there's been a little bit of mixed reviews about it, but I'm excited to see it though.
I know you were saying like, so you tend to not like stuff that's like too dystopian, like we talked about Black Mirror before. Yeah. I still, from what I remember, we saw a couple of episodes of Arcane. It's not a happy world, like it's a world with conflict. But I'm curious just to contrast it against a different one. Terminator Zero. Have you seen that?
I watched the first 2 episodes, but it wasn't really for me.
I thought so. Okay, because that's a little bit more like dark.
I like progressive stories. where you have a progressive. I think I mentioned that before, like a progressive character that starts from the bottom. Now we're here. The kind of everything goes wrong, and then things get gradually better, and then things go wrong again, and then things get gradually better. I like that kind of progression. I don't like, for example, even though I like anime, and I know it's one of the more popular animes out there, I cannot watch Attack on Titan. I cannot watch that entirely.
Interesting.
Like, I've watched the first season, watched the second season part, and I was like, this is just too dark. It's the opposite. Things just keep on getting worse.
What's the premise of Attack on Titan? Because I've not watched it. Any games I've played with it, I've really not gotten on with. But I'm curious, what's the basic story?
Good, but it's hard to tell anything about it because you go into spoilers so quickly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Basically, Titans there's humanity is confined to different like a city spiral, I guess, and Titans are attacking them constantly, so they have to try to survive. Humanity's last bastion and whatnot.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of like the premise. Yeah.
But when you were comparing that against Arcane, then in terms of the progressive story, what is
there's definitely a progressive story in Attack on Titan as well. Because you have the main character. There's a lot of stuff that is going on with him, and I do know the full story because I read it, but the anime I just can't continue to watch it because it gets so dark and so depressing. The first 20 minutes are already horrible. When I'm not gonna, again, for people who haven't seen it, who do want to watch it, nothing pleasant happens in that first episode, and I'm okay with that, that first episode, but then you think you get this progressive story about this character that is going to become, better and better and whatever, but things just get worse. They just keep on getting relief. Yeah, there's no relief. Yeah, that's the exact thing. It keeps on, every time when you think there is some hope, then kind of gets squashed within the next 20 minutes of the series.
This is actually a really good moment for me to ask you a question, Rowdy, because a couple of years ago, as we were going through lockdown and all that stuff, it definitely felt like year on year, every year was progressively getting worse. It just felt like that. Where do you think where do we stand now, in your opinion? Because you've always got a really interesting, unique take on these kinds of things. So I'm curious, where do you think we are heading into 2025? In your take of the world?
I actually disagree with that statement. I think that things have never been better than they are now. But I think the way that we portray the past is always deemed to be better because you don't remember, or you tend to forget the horrible things faster than for example, if someone passes away, you're not going to remember all the horrible things they've said or done, or the arguments that you've had. You're going to remember the nice moments you've had together, right? And I think you have that kind of relationship with yourself as well, that your past self is always, I had it so good back then, everything was so nice back then. But then if you would really go back then, you'd be that was pretty bad and that was pretty miserable. So I think that it's always good to look at the future and don't focus too much on the past. So be excited for 2025, and no matter what spot you're feeling right now, things will get better.
All right, and go watch Arcane on Netflix. Yeah. It's so funny.
Start, man.
Yeah, man.
I want to bottle that up and drink it.
That was inspirational.
And I had a second thing actually on that.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Really short. There's a new documentary that got released yesterday. I don't know if anybody saw it. I watched a portion of it, which was interesting because yesterday was, like Adam mentioned earlier, it was Black Friday. And they released a documentary actually specifically on top of that. And it's called, I think, Buyout, it's called. And it's it's basically about companies trying to keep their consumers in a vicious shopping cycle where you continuously.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's Netflix is a little bit popularized and dramatized, I think. Oculus does get a mention in it. So it is interesting, not specifically that they're, the evil corporation that is whatever, but it's more it's a former employee from Apple, and he joined the Oculus, the founding team, and helped building the headset. And he talks about his experience working for companies those big tech companies that specifically make devices not to last or to be replaced
Yeah.
very fast.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm really glad the EU is actually heading in what appears to be the right direction there, with replaceable batteries being mandated from, I don't remember the year, 27, I think, 2027 forwards, because that's something that really irks me. Is like, I think about like all my old like game systems, and like they all work. I can just plug them into the wall, fire a cartridge in, and I can play. But like for like the last 5 to 10 years, most whatever it's game systems, the software stack, like it all just disintegrates within a couple of years. Even now, I think about a Quest or a Go or whatever. You try to load those headsets up, and it's like everything's deprecated. Yeah. It's like it's not working anymore. So,
and what that documentary highlights is that is done with intent. With the intent of those devices being replaced before the end of their life cycle, basically.
Yeah, and it's the evil of marketing and companies. It's like if you make too good of a plunger, you'll never sell another plunger, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Funny choice, I suppose. There,
yeah, out of everything you could have picked, but let's go with it.
Gotta have a good plunger.
It's a good one, though.
Gotta have a good plunger.
Gotta have
Definitely
a good plunger.
Better than Limb.
I thought he'd escaped. You're never gonna let me escape that, Jose, are you? Cool, Rowdy. Well, thank you for the cool recommendations. I always like that. I still haven't listened to any of the immersive audio books that you had mentioned before. I need to try that maybe over the holidays. I know I always like to think I like load my whole like end of year with like all these things I'm gonna do, and then it ends up being like a week or a couple of days, and then it's January all of a sudden again. So New Year comes really fast, but I like the opportunists viewpoint heading into the new year, Rowdy. That's really nice. So warming us up. All right. Next up, it's Mr. Miami. Hey, Jose, how you doing?
Yo. Oh man, I'm excited. I'm not the only one that's feeling optimistic. So I definitely feel the same way that Rowdy feels about the future. And then definitely about more other stuff that we'll talk later on. But I've been super busy. This is the first time I've been home in like a month, and about to leave again tomorrow to Michigan. Yeah, it's been quite hectic. Michigan, yeah. I was in Rhode Island last week, and I recorded a podcast. I think I was in Atlanta. So I've been all over the place. It's awesome. I feel like I don't know if you guys ever played like Metal Gear Solid, but Solid Snake. Like I feel like this like mercenary, that's being tasked to go to a different state before he finishes his job in one site. But it's awesome.
My mind, Jose,
literally,
it's like shoved in a box, like one of those shipping containers.
Well, you're shipping me up
Price,
next,
right?
Yeah,
it's Metal Gear Solid with Fisher Price.
Yeah, but no, it's been awesome to just travel for work and being able to work with a team that's also as crazy as me and optimistic. Because, I say that a lot, that if nobody's going to do it, somebody has to, right? Fix these headsets, set them up, and traveling across a lot of schools and business facilities. And it's always meeting the people who are in charge of these headsets. And it's always sometimes somebody who's really excited. It was like, oh, yeah, we've been trying to use these headsets for a while now, but, a plethora of reasons. There was wireless not working, or tracking not working, or they don't have the right cables to charge them, or they just never use VR at all. There's always different reasons of why these headsets have been collecting dust, and bringing them back up to life, making sure they work, and seeing the enthusiasm and having fun conversation sometimes with kids that are walking by. I had this really funny story that I wanted to share with you guys. This kid was just staring at me. I was setting up headsets in the library, and I just see this kid just staring, just drawn to the headset. And I tell one of my coworkers, I was like, he's gonna walk up here any minute. And little we know, I'm working on the headsets, and then I just hear my coworker, hey, drop that, put it down, we're updating them. And that's exactly what happened. The kid walked up, didn't ask anything, just grabbed the headset and just started using it. He was just that drawn and tempted to use it. And so he's using the headset, and so he puts it down, and he starts asking questions, and he's like, oh, I never seen this one. Is this a Quest? And I'm like, oh, that's a Pico. So he uses it, he's looking at it, and I'm like, keep him looking at it like a hawk, because I don't want him to mess it up, because they're updating. And then he goes, oh, here's the volume button. Now I know what to do. Now I can hack it. And I'm like, whoa, kid. Whoa. Really back. What did you just say? He's like, oh yeah, I know how to how to remove the locks on it. And I'm like, what do you mean you know? He's like, oh yeah, I have a Quest 2 at home and I know how to factory reset it. I just hold the power button here. And I'm like, how about you don't share that information with none of your classmates?
Because they're trying to set this thing up so it's ready and someone could just wipe it. Like,
literally, dude.
God.
It gave me, it lifted the hairs on my arms because I was like, oh no, I just saw like, it reminded me of me as a kid because that's what I used to do with the school computers in the library. I would unlock them so I can access MySpace or whatever at that time. So it was scary. Yeah, it was like scary and awesome at the same time because I was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm the victim of this time. So it's not so fun being on the other side of it all.
But I love it. That era, like of when you're a kid, it feels like you can do anything. It's only about like getting over that barrier of knowledge to like, how do I do the thing that I'm trying to do? But it's such a cool age, like in those like mid-teen years, for example. I don't know how old this kid was, but like
it was a teenager, yeah.
Yeah, it's a really cool time because like they're life hackers. That's the whole point, right? It's like you got to figure stuff out so that you drag the whole human race forward. Yeah. Like that's your purpose.
Win more with less, that's something that going to what Rowdy said about optimism for the future. There is so much powerful technology that these companies who are designing that with planned obsolescence, they won't be able to catch up. There's going to be I see an eventuality where somebody's going to release like a crazy jailbreak for the Quest, and you're going to start seeing the Quest 1, the 2, the 3, all these headsets that the meta's trying to like scoot under the rug when the new headset comes out. They're going to be just as reliable and just keep being updated by the community. And I'm just really excited about that. So that's kind of what's, work-wise. I did play a lot of VR actually in my spare time. 2 games to mention is Metro.
Yay!
I definitely yes. So I played some
Metro. How far
Metro.
did you get?
I would say maybe like
spoilers.
I don't want to spoil too much, but I think I just got the full grasp of all the mechanics, which is like the backpack mechanics with the lighting, which is an anxiety-ridden mechanic on its own when you're trying to hide or run away from monsters because the light alerts monsters, but also alerts the enemies, but also you need it in order to see where you're going. So, yeah, definitely an anxiety.
You see what I mean now about that bloody cone? It's like it's a small tunnel of light. Like
it is rough. It is rough, especially when you have to only use that cone if you don't want to get caught or seen. So you're kind of like always enough light to see and then like moving it around. I would say I'm trying to be careful we're not spoiling too much, but it really does feel like Metro through and through. Even the first initial, I say 30 minutes of the game, you get to see a very important scene from the first Metro game when Artyom gets sent on his mission. That was super exciting to be able to see it from a different. That is a spoiler. I apologize. It happens in the first 5 minutes. So, but you do see. Yeah, nobody's gonna remember that. But you actually, as you're walking in the first corridor, you look to your right and you see Artyom, who's the main character of the mainline Metro games, being sent on his own task, which is where the first game starts.
That.
Yeah,
that's sick.
Sorry, just a Rowdy. Our faces appear to be missing.
Uh-oh.
We transformed into gray.
Yeah, we're just gray boxes at the moment.
I am the gray box.
I am the left gray box. Can you put your finger on me and make my face reappear?
Strange,
it would be great.
I don't see.
There we go.
Oh, okay.
Back?
That seems to be fixed. But
okay, cool. But
did you get to anything that you would consider scary, or are you still gonna play?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna play. The first 30 minutes were scary, right? There's they immediately put you on a turret gun, and they show you what the intensity of the game looks like, where they have a bunch of monsters flooding at you, and they're kind of just teaching you all the mechanics early on, and even that was intense.
Yeah.
It's a fun game. I definitely want to continue playing it, and it's storytelling. That's really what gets me into these games. Is I don't mind being scared if there's a narrative reason why. That's why I love games like Stalker, for example, that they do have a story that you're following. They're not just scaring you for the sake of it. But games like Phasmophobia, where you're just being terrified with your friends for the sake of it, I don't like those. So
that makes sense.
Give me a carrot on a stick, and I will joyfully get scared of. And to counter that out, Trombone Champ.
Oh my lord.
Yay! Good one too.
Yeah, dude. I played. It was funny because I was looking for something to like calm my nerves down, and then I get the pre-release key, and I'm like, this is it. This is what I'm gonna spend the rest of the night with, and ended up taking the whole night playing. I just fun music rhythm game, and it's not afraid to let you fail on your own. It's not where you play musical instrument games. Like another one that comes to mind that came around the same time is I think it's called Unplugged. Is it Rock Band? No, Unplugged. I forgot the name of the actual game though.
The guitar one? Or
That's the name.
Is the name Unplugged? Okay, cool. So
Yeah.
Unplugged, where it kind of always wants you to hold the controller a certain way, and if you move your hand enough, it kind of breaks the immersion. Everything just feels off.
I agree.
Trombone Champ lets you move your hands in a wacky direction and still keep, because it knows that you're not always going to have precisional tuning, but it still knows where the hands are at all times, which was definitely what makes a game and not a simulation or whatever. They focused on fun, and through that it feels like its own instrument, even though it's making a trombone. But I was talking to Alex VR from Between Realities and Impact. It feels like a synthesizer. It almost feels like its own instrument in a way, which makes it fun because you get the audible feedback to you, squeezing the trombone around, especially when you're next to somebody and you start making funny sounds next to them and annoying the crap out of them. And just lots of VR games, and I think that's about it this week for me.
Nice.
That's very nice. It's funny because we're like complete opposites on the game side. Like for me, going into a derpy music game is probably cause for stress, and I would go into the kind of scarier game to relieve it, because I don't know, there's something about how that, I don't know, like now, like I go to scary games to kind of get relief. It's weird. It's weird. I would.
Who hurt you?
Are you saying that your life is that dark, bro?
Yeah.
It's like, what happened to you?
It's like, I find relief in Metro.
I feel like Zim every episode is like casually letting us know that he needs somebody like to hug him, and we're like we're not picking up the signs here.
Yeah, but it's weird. It's after years of dread halls and things like that just reprogrammed me a little bit. Same reason I watched horror films. Like after a stressful day, I'll come home. Well, I'll come downstairs and I'll watch a horror film because it's relieving. It doesn't make me tense. It's the opposite of it.
Makes you feel alive.
Weird, very weird. So, nice highlights. And Adam, the Unstoppable is next. I see you all over the bloody web. There's all kinds of things you're putting out. What have you been up to these last couple of weeks?
Maybe I'll do more of a middle of the ground, but they're not too serious, not too comical, I guess. And that's two particular games that I've been playing recently that I really like, both mixed reality. One I know Zim played, and that's Augmented Empire. Yeah. And then I don't know, did you try? I've also been really liking Walltown Wonders. That's another one that I've
we have very similar tastes when it comes to mixed reality. I feel my wife sent me a little video of me very curiously inspecting the wall. And she was giddy because she's like, what is so amazing about this wall? It's just, I wish I had the clip here ready for you. But I'm like watching it back, it looks so stupid. Like you're like staring at a wall.
Yeah, you're like, oh, look at wall. And you go closer to the wall and you're like, wow.
But yeah, it's that whole like Sims thing, isn't it? Where like you're caring for a populace of people. There is some progression with it. And unlike Starship Home, I don't know, I got on with it a little bit better, I think. And
there's a lot more to do. The mechanics, there's also really fun random things that can happen. Like, I don't know if you've had it happen, but with my farm, I had to guide there was a like hot air balloon that had fertilizer poop coming out of it. So you have to kind of like beach ball push the little balls of poop over to that wherever your farm is.
That sounds like a Sims kind of game, yeah.
Love shitty games.
Little things. I mean, like the characters that can ride around on your hand, or all of the different vehicles, including like the gecko. They're all different, like really unique interactions, especially for mixed reality. I find, and I don't know, like it's fun to see what's gonna pop up next on like what's gonna appear that I'm gonna have to control or whatever. But
it felt like Gulliver's Travels when you have I mean, actually, the handwriting thing early on in the game I don't even know how to talk about mixed reality games anymore. It's like, of course, you progress through it and something's happening, but it just kind of feels real. It's not like I don't feel like I'm progressing a story in a game. I feel like things are just happening in my room.
Mhm.
But yeah, that was kind of neat, just being able to pick somebody up and drop them somewhere. Or I really liked the biplane pilot who was zipping around my room and
I
went in for a
crashed them
landing.
so many times because I have a hard time control. That's the one thing I have a hard time with is controlling the plane. So it just crashes into a fiery ball of explosion like 10 times in a row, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
Why are you laughing while you say this? I feel like you're doing it on
Because
purpose. I feel
the
like this is really...
the explosion is kind of comical looking because it looks like, when they do the cheesy YouTube explosions or like a GIF, and it's kind of bad, but like, so it was, I don't know, it's kind of entertaining to watch.
You just reminded me of one of my main frustrations, and I'll mention this game again later, but when I first ever tried Microsoft Flight Simulator, the first thing you're going to do when you're a kid and you don't give a feck about flying is right down to the ground, right? And the game would pause you literally like, I don't know, a millimeter off the ground, so it didn't have to animate the crash,
What
and
a
it just
tease.
pops up, you died, or you crashed the plane, and it's like, you're kidding me. That's gonna be how we go down in flames?
Is that
Does it
Flight
pop
Simulator
up?
blue balling you?
Absolutely, 100%. And
It-
oh man, so you mentioned Wall Town Wonders. I agree. I think I definitely had my eye on that one. I can't remember if you mentioned it, Adam, first, but like that's a good game. It's definitely one that people should check out. It seems like it's got nice depth to it. I think if you're on a Quest 2 though, like anything that's like lower resolution than like Quest 3 or Quest 3S, it probably won't look great because things are very small. Like you have to get not uncomfortably, but like you have to get pretty damn close to like walls and stuff like that. And I'm surprised that I haven't bumped my head on a wall yet. So they've done something right, but like I want to like explore with my whole head through a shop or through a wall. But oftentimes those shops, restaurants, whatever, are embedded in the wall. So I don't know how I haven't managed to kind of put my face into the physical wall yet. But it's cool. It's entertaining. You mentioned Augmented Empire. That was going to be my highlight, actually. So I should probably kind of mention that as well. And I have Rowdy's got some footage of it. But the thing for Augmented Empire, which is an older game, it's kind of XCOM style, turn-based. So you move your chess pieces, so to speak, and then they shoot guns or whatever at other enemy chess pieces. Then they take their turn, and vice versa. It's a nice story, very, very well voice acted. The audio felt pristine. Nothing about this felt like it was dated, honestly. The visuals were crisp. So as a game that's being re-released, I used to play it on Oculus Go. I was like impressed by the visuals.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, how different is it from the original? So the voice acting's different, like, I mean, besides the mixed reality, of course. And
so, I mean, I remember the voice acting being good. I don't know if they've remastered it or whatever, but like when it comes out now, so many years later, probably 6 years later, it feels fresh. It doesn't feel reused, is what I'm saying. So that's amazing. But the thing that I thought was really well done was when they stepped from, like, I'll call it the robot room scene where you're surrounded by a room like you would in a normal virtual reality game, then to the what I'll call pop-up house of like the various environments. They're not all just stuck in a box, and like things like a railway line actually extend left and right. So they've done like extensions, and each of the rooms are different sizes. The scale feels good, and they even something that Demio sometimes suffers from is like table tilt of what's comfortable. The ability to kind of tilt to have it actually cut off at the edge of your play space. There's just a bunch of different technical tricks that they did for launch day, which are like, I really appreciate the time and attention they brought into the game. But the thing that really surprised me, and it brought me back to my Apple Vision Pro demo, was just the pinch. I could have my hand down at my waist, and what happens is if you're trying to like make a shot, you'll have this little dial come up, and you have to like confirm
reaction
the
time
right moment. Yeah, reaction time on these tiny little slivers. And I thought there's no way with hand controls only that this is going to feel precise to me. So I tried with motion controls and I tried with hand only. And honestly, I couldn't really tell the difference. And it was really, really smart how they have you like do like a push select on a virtual layer cake. to select enemies, to move your piece. And actually, after playing for like probably near 2 hours, I didn't have a single misfire, which I was super impressed with. And that was in a well-lit environment. And then when I was hanging out a day or two later, sitting on my couch, low-level lighting, like in a family room type environment, I found that to be a little frustrating, actually. Like I was misclicking in certain places.
Yeah,
So
I think
what
for me,
go ahead.
sometimes if you like the back button, because it's the same spot as end turn, sometimes with hand tracking, if I have to like panic click so it doesn't also end the turn when I want to go back. And not the skill back, but the like you've already selected a skill, but now you want to change your mind. It's right on the same spot as end turn. So if you hold your finger there a little too long, I'm just like, what the hell? I just wanted to go back. I didn't want to end the whole turn. But that was pretty, I think that was the only issue I would have sometimes, and probably was due to low light. But otherwise, yeah, I tried controllers too, and I was like, I'd rather do hand tracking. It's just easier and more fun.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. So out of every game I've ever played in VR with hand tracking, this is the first one I feel like you can completely play with hand tracking, and it's actually more comfortable because it's just easier than using controllers. And I have never had that before. With Rogue Ascent, we got like 80% of the way there. The one which was the finger guns.
Oh,
and
yeah, you reload like this.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, but there was something that just felt a little bit like, not quite there yet. And it was the same thing. What was the guitar game you were saying, Unplugged? Unplugged was similar. Like without the feedback, you were strumming away. You had to hold the guitar neck up like you were holding a dead goose or something. It didn't really feel right. For an extended period of time, like for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, you're like, okay, this is kind of a cool demo. But as a game, I found it awkward. Rogue Ascent was pretty decent. And now, Augmented Empire is great. I would just say that. It's great mixed reality experience with hand tracking. I actually think it's a perfect game matched to the Quest 3S because the 3S works very well. It obviously has the IR flood in front of you.
I was just about to ask that.
And so that's great. And then if you're in a well-lit environment for Quest 3. But those two headsets, I think it would look really good. I haven't tried it, but I think it would also look really good on a Quest 2. So if you missed Augmented Empire, it was one of those games that I remember, Mike, our previous host, and I both awarding back in the day. It's a really great thing to see older games kind of get rehashed, kind of like what we saw with Arizona Sunshine recently. It brings it out again so a new audience can kind of participate in it. But as someone who didn't finish Augmented Empire, I now want to, and I think it's going to be my chill out after work game because it's not like Beats It. It doesn't take a lot of energy. You're just kind of chilling out.
It's nice. Like I do like the moments where there's like you have some moments of action, but then you take a break and it's like you explore to pick up credits and things. Like it's a good balance, so it's not hectic all the time. Yeah. And even the combat, I don't think there's difficulty options, right? It's just one.
Not that I remember,
right?
Not that I remember, but I was just recently getting into the Breach on Steam Deck, and as a turn-based game, like last podcast, I said how Triangle Strategy really disappointed me in its pacing, in its hand controls. It just felt like hard work. It didn't feel like a game to me at the start. And I know once you get past the first couple of hours, the game's meant to really impress people using controllers. So this one is very easy to love. And that's really nice for a game that deserves it, in my opinion. So maybe I'll be able to finish it this time. I'm glad you mentioned that as a highlight for you. Were those your two highlights, Adam?
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, chat, thanks for being here for the live show. Definitely appreciate you all being there. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor for today's show. So today's sponsor is Kluge Interactive. I should say again, because I've sponsored the show numerous times before, and we all know their game that's been loved by the VR community for many years now, Synth Riders, which again is like a music game on rails. I like to think of it because there's a lot of like swing motions, and I always like to think back to their synthy albums, which have been my favorite. But they've done a bunch of like collab stuff with a bunch of different artists like Lindsey Sterling and that. Well, they've got a snazzy new user interface. It's not often we have companies kind of taking a breath, stepping back, and redesigning. Companies like Meta, who could, maybe do that with their user interface. It's pretty good these days, but maybe they could re-engineer a little bit and learn from some others of their competitors. But Kluge, they take VR seriously, and they've decided to overhaul their user interface to make it easier to use, more intuitive, and actually smoother. I took a tour in that actually earlier today, and it really works. It's more inviting, and with the refreshed design, everything is like a little bit more accessible and visually streamlined. It still feels familiar to the old like hexagon shape, but there's more options in front of you, and I would argue they're presented more cleanly. For example, I just stumbled upon a discovery of one of their modifiers, where on the left side panel, you can toggle on different modes. And one of them was, and apologies, because I can't remember what it was called. It's like a rotating line rider mode. I think it was called.
Oh, is that where it's like spiral or something?
Spiral mode. Thank you. Spiral mode. So spiral mode was a bit of an odd experience for me, but I'd never experienced it before. I don't think that's new with their current release, but I ran across it, so I played it. And when the DK1 launched back in the day, the DK1, DK2 era, there were a lot of line riders where you would be traveling down like a pipe, and then you'd be like cycling around that, trying not to hit objects coming at you. And in this case, it's your kind of standard Synth Riders game, but you're using your body tilt and momentum to kind of pick up the orbs and ride those rails as you did. So that was kind of cool. But then there's also kind of front and center a few things that I really like. Mixed reality mode, which is definitely improved since initial launch. That's easy. Your walls disappear away, and then the orbs come into your room from the virtual into kind of your reality, which is nice. But also there's challenges, and in particular, there's this... there's experiences. So if you've not had a chance to experience some of their kind of breakaway, more dynamic environments, then this like leads you straight to those. And the experiences that are in the game now are fresh and new. And if you haven't had a chance to experience them, they've actually built up quite a catalog. Muse, for example, is one that I had tried out. And that was like, I was like, why didn't I try this before? Why didn't I take the time? Because it's actually really good. So I would say there's kind of three main parts to Synth Riders. There's the kind of core main game, which goes toe-to-toe with things like Beat Saber. There's the mixed reality mode, which is really easy to play the game at home. But then there's these challenges and experiences, which are like a nice modification on the base game. And it really does feel quite fresh. So I've always appreciated Synth Riders and Kluge for their selection of music. And that's something that I want to tip my hat at again. Thanks for sponsoring the podcast today, and for helping us all find our groove in both the virtual and mixed realities.
The UI is a lot smaller now too. Because I remember the UI before, you kind of had to step back physically a little bit because it was just like boom, like just giant. But it looks like it's really nice and a lot more compact and streamlined. So that's good.
It's also one of the games that I feel like got social right, because social multiplayer. I still look at. I don't know why Beat Saber didn't decide to like show you a player avatar with VoIP or whatever, but Synth Riders does it really well. I remember we were covering the Cosmos a couple years back.
Right.
And this lady beat my ass at Synth Riders. I was like, "You're using a Cosmos? Riders. Get ready to get owned, lady." And then I got totaled. So I had to wear my hat of shame, but I will remember that day sorely for the rest of my life.
And the fitness community too, I wanted to mention. Like the content creation community behind Synth Riders is huge. Like that's something that we normally don't see a lot on Twitter, but on the more visual, video heavy social networks like Instagram or TikTok, you see there's a huge content creation base of content creators that do nothing but play mixed reality Synth Riders. And that's the game of choice, and they dress up, they do the eye candy stuff, and so they have people commenting and trying to get their attention. It's awesome. I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't talk about a lot, is especially with like live streaming games like Twitch or YouTube Live, is there was always like a negative stigma of female content creators who are doing the visual eye candy, but they're just playing a game sitting down. It's a whole different conversation when they're actually playing a physical game. Now that the stigma isn't really there, they dress however they want, but they're actually still happens, right? They're always going to be finding a way that people argue, but at least they're actually doing something physical, and it is a game. It's really cool.
It's an interesting turn that you mentioned. I don't think I'd ever considered that. And coming from Twitch and the not bathtub era. What am I thinking about? The
Yeah,
tub?
that.
the
Kind
hot
of
tub era
semi-
of
Yeah.
Twitch, and actually growing up on Twitch and through all of that, and it was interesting to see it, because obviously people are trying to make a name for themselves and pull whatever trick they can, and some people are really good at it, but I agree with you. It, like, we've gotten to the point now where it's like these people are really just fitness coaches to some extent, who are now leading their own community and have a kind of comfortable home for that now.
Yeah.
And it's great. It's very established. I mean, I would say that when we went to MetaConnect, like a third of the creators there were like fitting that category of, doing fitness games. I mean, it's good for you, B, it's good for your audience. And it's great for VR as well. I mean, I still remember when Beat Saber got the what do you call it? Like the 360 trick, right? The trickery or was that Liv? I don't know who.
Liv. It was a rotato thing. It's so dangerous.
The rotato thing where like it's faking.
Rotates your play space. Yeah, so you have to like, you're physically turning. We have so many warnings on that, like God, because you're physically turning. It's like it's rotating your play space around you, so that you have to constantly be rotating to match the front. And it looks cool in a video, but
Right.
you need to make sure that you're safe and you have the space for it.
I couldn't believe it, because it's that kind of tech where you see a camera rotating around, you're like, how the feck is that happening? It's like, I know for a fact this dude or gal is like in front of a static camera. There's no, how's the world, like, my brain couldn't connect it. I remember Mike doing it at one point. That was funny. So yeah, give that a shot, folks. All right, let's move towards the news next. I'm gonna start us off on PSVR 2. Again, every 2 weeks we like to kind of compartmentalize and bring you a train of related VR news. So kind of going back a couple of weeks here with this one. But PS5 Pro landed. And actually one of the things that PSVR 2 owners were curious about was, well, is there anything for us, Sony? Are we getting anything? Anything at all? Is there a reason why I need to go out and spend $800 on a new platform? And actually, the PS5 Pro patches that have been landing have been adding some value. I would say, just as a caveat at the start, before I wet your whistle with some of these pieces, that most people who have a PS5 Pro have tried these things out, have said, like, it's not worth going and upgrading your existing setup for, unless there's a specific thing that you're after. The first one is the Pro patch for Gran Turismo 7. I'm a sim racer, love that stuff, and certainly my community has been talking about this, buzzing for several months now, of, are we all going to upgrade to a PS5 Pro? Because GT7 is one of the best goddamn looking games in VR at the moment, and to get that, with smoother playback, eliminate reprojection, like, we were hoping for all manner of things. So I will say they have introduced VR positional reprojection. That's not eliminating reprojection, but it does smooth the game out. There are some blocky artifacts introduced, but the game looks sharper at distances, smoother in places, but on the counter side introduces that kind of blocky artifact that you get with reprojection in certain places. So it's not a generational leap, but players who've migrated have mentioned that it is difficult for them to go back, and that it's a discernible difference in quality. So if you are a huge sim racer, that's one to be aware of for GT7. I would specifically mention that if you want detailed, eyes-on feedback, check out GT Planet. They've got some good feedback about what that did for console, as well as what it did for PSVR 2. And the comments were very even keel, and I thought well articulated. So check out GT Planet for that. The other game, I know Adam is a fan of this game, Kayak VR, got some pro updates in terms of their visuals. So again, sharper at distances, just better resolution. These resolution patches are likely to irk their way out as developers find the time to develop for what can only be described as a niche of a niche community, as PSVR 2 owners with a PS5 Pro, but that's coming. It's getting unlocked. And then with their recent update called The Curse, No Man's Sky devs have also brought about PS5 Pro changes, mentioning that they've actually carried an update that ups the resolution by 300%, which is dramatic. And players are saying that it's a very, very noticeable upgrade. So if you're a No Man's Sky player, and no, I'm not going back. I've sworn I'm not going back to No Man's Sky myself, but PSVR2 is the best place to play that. And now it's only gotten better with a Pro patch. Upcoming, for those of you who might be looking for a new game to try out, Subside is coming, saying that they're going to leverage PS5 Pro's extra oomph for, again, better resolution and detail, as that is being ported and released from PC for PC VR players as well on PSVR 2. So those are 4 games you can kind of dip your toes into if you've got a PS5 Pro, or ones that you can look forward to if Santa's going to bring you one this Christmas. So with that, I've got a very different kind of piece of news that's a little bit different for us. Azad from the Puzzling Places devs, I think did he change companies recently? He might have. But anyway, I've been following him for years, and Puzzling Places is known for its wonderful fine scale kind of geometry, putting together real physical places. And he spotted a thing that came out. This is a year ago now, but it's only gotten like 1,000 odd views. You might remember some years back, there was an animator who had figured out with something called Hypermart, a kind of a portrayal of like what the future might look like with all these pop-ups. Well, they released a recent animated feature called Agents. And this is really interesting, and I think could spark for some debate as well. It's a combination between Liquid City, the animation studio, and Niantic, who we know from, well, a number of different things, including Pokemon Go and a number of VR and AR projects. But this combination has led to a 5-minute short film in which this writer, this lady, has a bunch of little kind of mixed reality companions around, and she's trying to program them or kind of teach them various things. She ends up going to a local cafe, meets a gentleman, and actually she has one of her little agents, these little kind of different independent AIs helping her with different parts of her life. And she's over her left shoulder has this little Cupid agent. And the Cupid agent fires the little shot. Some dude gets matched with her and sits down for coffee with her. And it's like this really cool vision of what Starbucks in the future might be. But then they start comparing because she's got all these like little agents and he's got what he calls the One. And the One is like almost like a Siri. It's this bubble that floats next to him. It does everything. Anyway, long story short, it's a lovely 5-minute, like short tale, start to finish. Absolutely track this thing down after the podcast and give it a watch. I'm really shocked actually at how little viewership the beautiful animations this guy's been getting from the Liquid Studio team behind these animated short films. And I just wanted to call it out. So Azad, thanks for telling me about this on Twitter. I went through like 5 or 6 of them. And man, I can't get enough. It clearly, after having gotten 8.5 million views on their Hypermart, which I think many of us would recognize from years ago, back to getting just a couple hundred of views on their recent chapters today, it's a dramatic lapse. And it's one of these places where sometimes you have an artist who's still got the skills, they're still bringing the game, but the algorithm's just not giving them any food. And so I wanted to call these out. So look out for Liquid City. Follow them on Twitter or Blue Sky or wherever. Their videos are on Vivo. Vivo? Is that the right? Vivo and YouTube. Yeah. So check that out. That's really, really cool. The partnership with Niantic is really neat. And actually related to that, they have another project. And this project is actually an app. Okay, so again, this is another Niantic kind of style participation. And it's called Overbeast. And this has apparently been around for a year. Adam, do you know about this? I figured you
heard
might.
about it, but I'm meaning to look into it because I like Niantic stuff because it's usually Pokemon-y, Peridot-y. So I'm like, but no.
Exactly.
Yes, only a name.
So Overbeast is, you can think of it as an overlain, like Godzilla scale Pokemon that you can have on your phone, right? And Overbeast has been going through kind of like open beta testing. And so they've been doing these testing rounds. But basically what you do is you feed plants in your local area through this AR app on your phone. And then though that plant life attracts and feeds these giant monsters who appear over your city. So say you're in Pittsburgh or New York or London, and all of your city has to contribute to strengthen your beast. And then your beast competes like some giant Digimon against other cities. And then at the end of like a series of competitions, your city might come out ahead. So it kind of brings in that like soccer or football mentality of like, that's my team, and kind of the red, blue, yellow teams of Pokemon Go in a very different way. So Overbeast seems really, really cool. There are open apps for iOS and for Android. So you can sign up for this. There's a Discord. I tried signing up for it in Canada. It didn't seem to work for me. If anyone else has gotten Overbeast working or participated in previous rounds, as this has been out for about a year now, please let us know. I'm really, really curious about this. I asked them on their Discord. I might even have a live answer here. I'll check.
I'm surprised that I'd never heard of this, because this
I
seems like
haven't
something I would
either.
try.
You said it's been out for a year?
Yeah, been out for a year. Overbeast.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quiet about it, or maybe I'm just not paying attention. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And you
only
mentioned the
has 1,000
Pokemon, but there
downloads.
was, and maybe you guys, I don't know if maybe I was really into the toys growing up, but there was a toy platform called Scanners, I think it was called, and it was similar concept, but it was a toy that was a barcode reader, and you would go through products with barcodes, and whatever barcode they will unlock a monster, and same concept, the monster you would use it to battle other people. And
I had a Jurassic Park version of that. It was Scan Command, where you could like scan barcodes and it would unlock DNA, and you could use that to like update your dinosaur or whatever. That was a thing at one point, is the scanners for some reason.
The only issue I'm seeing with this is that it hasn't been updated since December 2023.
I think what's happened is I think they did kind of a public test, and I think they're still working on it behind the scenes, because I can see activity in their Discord and all that, but it does look like they're in stasis right now. So I'm mentioning this not as a go out and play this today, but a keep an eye, because the studio's made a bunch of really cool stuff, including, do you remember that owl, that project that we had where there was like an AR owl that you could ask questions of, and it was like ChatGPT integrated or whatever. So this is similar. Right, it's from the same. I think it's from some of the same devs. So keep an eye on it. That's Overbeast, and there's one more related project, which I'm going to hazard a guess that maybe Jose has already come across, but he's only had this AVP for a short amount of time. Jose, are you familiar? This is for AVP owners, so anyone with an Apple Vision Pro out there, perk your ears up. Are you familiar with Wisp? Wisp World? So Wisp World, and Rowdy's going to run a little video of this. Wisp World is what they refer to as a desk ornament or companion. So again, when I hear those terms, I just think of Adam's kind of interests. But it follows you around. You kind of like play with it in the same way that you could with like those livable like desk pets that you would have in Windows operating environment back in the 90s, you know? So this for AVP owners is Adam's putting out a face like she wants this.
Yes, I gotta buy an Apple Vision Pro now. Well, sorry, not to cut Zim off, but does Apple Vision Pro work where you could have multiple things up at the same time?
That's where I was going to.
Browser? Yeah.
That's the problem with these concepts, is that they don't get me excited because what you just asked. No, it does not allow you to have concurrent apps at the moment. I thought you were going to mention Peridot, which also recently got a Apple Vision Pro port.
You're right.
Which I got to use. I got to, understand which I guess this demo that we're seeing also gets to kind of enable, which is what high fidelity does with desk objects and ornaments that interact with you. They do, I guess, strum the emotional fidgety requirement that some people have. Like the Peridot, for me, there was a moment where I knew I was holding air, but because of the spatial audio, I could hear the purrs of Peridot like near my ear, and there was a moment there where I went like, oh, wait a minute, this is powerful enough that maybe for me it seems pointless, but what about a child with an autoimmune disease who cannot touch an animal? right? They still get a level of empathy there that I do think it's cool. I do like the idea of desk objects that are virtual, but that is the problem. Is my engineering side yells at me, says that's currently impossible with current architectures right now and CPUs. Is we're not going to get there yet. So I don't know. Yeah.
It's an interesting point you mentioned. So with AVP, can you just qualify your remarks about what's possible and not possible with those apps? So you're saying you can't be, for example, working on a document, watching YouTube video, and have your desk buddy there. This is a discrete app, has to be launched independently. And from your experience so far as an AVP owner, it's only one at a time.
Perfectly described.
Yeah, so that is a major barrier, I would say, to that, because the persistence. I think it was something that Mark Rabin, when we were speaking to him in summer, had mentioned, and it was like, it's nice to have a desk pet or something like that, someone in your home environment. But like, what you don't want is when you take your headset off that it's no longer there. It's no longer with you. It's like, that's not what a pet is. Like they should be kind of ever present to some extent. And I understand we're taking steps to get there. I remember the Nintendog days, of like having to turn on your game system to greet your pet or whatever. But I think it's not too far off. It's nice to see.
We're definitely not far off. As a student of computer history, Windows desktop pets or desktop gadgets or desktop assistants in the early 90s.
Oh yeah.
That's what led to startup applications, where you turn on your computer and certain applications boot up concurrently with the app with the computer. Headsets or VR, quote unquote, only operating systems are now starting to deal with those realities where maybe we'll see a startup app toggle where, when you turn on the headset, your desktop pet is there greeting you, waiting for you, but you don't have to open up an app and things of that sort. VPNs and whatever other applications.
I mean, honestly, if I think back over the 10 years of VR at the moment, probably the only compelling pet that I've come across was BOGO. And I'm kind of shocked that we don't have a mixed reality version of BOGO yet. I think that team, however, was dismantled, and I believe we aren't going to see it, which is sad. But someone could definitely do that. I remember they had that like alien experience back in the Rift days where you were on a beach. They were fecking weird ass aliens, and it was a total miss in my opinion. And then there've been things more recently, like that dog in Arizona Sunshine that you mentioned, I think last podcast, Adam. Certain things to start pulling on your heartstrings. But so far, I don't think we have a successful pet. Not yet.
Quite frankly, I don't think we'll see that until we have higher processors that are or rather, in a quick way to describe it, is twice as powerful as the current generation ones that are enough to have a core dedicated for a desktop pad or concurrent applications. Meta introduced like their persistent mixed reality objects, and there's a reason why that got pushed under the rug. It's the CPUs are not performant enough, because even it seems magical to us, but the reason they feel magical is the spatial audio, the mixed reality, the surface scanning in real time, the ability to that's a lot of processing that usually one application is using all those resources. Imagine it now, a game that's using 100% of that, sharing it also with your virtual pet. It's going to, it's going to melt in your face.
Yeah, because you don't have the ceiling right now, because devs will max that out. We're even lucky to get any kind of ceiling for like recording, because even recording, I remember in the first Quest, I remember walking up to John Carmack and saying like, hey, what's the system architecture for allowing system resources sufficient that you're able to do capture or streaming at the time? Like, we were like, did you build anything in? And the answer was, well, no, we haven't. And it was like, oh shoot, this is going to take years for them then and they have now. They've got an engineered layer in there, which is great. But I agree with you, Jose. It's going to be some time until we get to virtual.
I do have some good news. I think the name of it is Ember, but it's Wind Up Minds community that's behind it. But they're working on a sort of like a BOGO replacement virtual pet thing. I think it's called Ember. I was trying to go through I'm on their Discord, but I'm having trouble finding the actual name of the thing.
I think it's Ember. Yeah, EMBR. It's like a Firefox running around on a floor is the GIF I remember seeing of.
Yeah, like some kind of fox thing. I think they're doing testing and stuff, and I haven't hopped into them.
When do we think that Meta is going to come out with something like this? integrated into their Quest system,
Not soon.
or even cross system.
I think it's coming. Once they have a CPU that's performant enough that they can have startup applications or persistent applications that are running. This will probably go deeper into the next subject that we talk about. But these are just the manufacturers realizing how do you build a full computer experience that's not tethered to other devices, which we started with content creation, recording on the headset. Now it's persistent applications. And then the next one is multitasking. How do we get to do all that at once persistently? And that's the the ladder of hardware getting better, and
I think for Meta it would solve a problem that I think that a lot of these headsets are having, where like you buy the headset, or people buy the headset, and after 2 or 3 months it goes on the shelf and it starts collecting dust there. But if you build this kind of like connection to it, because there's a living entity in that headset that you need to take care of, you might be prolonging that that shelf time. And that could be a good way for people to, introduce new concepts in there as well.
Is it like the way you imagine it? Would it be equivalently like a skin or a layer on top of like Meta AI? So you're talking to your pet, or would you imagine that it would be discreet, more lifelike pet, something that's in there just to greet you, meet and greet you? Like what's drawing you back? Because I always look at this and I ask myself the question, like, how sad is it to want a virtual pet? Like I've got 5 real pets.
I want to push a little bit back on that. We do have that. It's just not a pet. It's us, right? Look at the Meta Horizon app. That's exactly what they're trying to build. They're trying to build a persistent world and experience that's outside of you with the headset. What I feel that their fatal flaw was, they don't want it to surround just the headset. They want it to exist outside of the headset, which means that they are tackled or anchored into a mobile app sort of thing, where every single feature that the mobile app offers should be cooked into the Horizon headset experience. I don't think it's fair for me to even unpair a controller. I require the mobile app, right? Inherently, by design, their architecture is always designed to have a paired headset, a paired computer, a paired mobile device. They're not thinking about a world where somebody purchases a Quest and they don't want a laptop. They don't want a mobile phone, right? It's like a weird halfway step of really doubling down on the future that I want, which is I want to replace a laptop with a headset. I don't want a headset in a laptop. I don't want a headset in a mobile phone. I don't want a headset in a tablet. I want a device that rules them out, and you can do this.
Right? So Jose, are you answering Rowdy's question in saying that not until Meta has replaced the personal computer with a standalone VR device?
Correct. The mobile app lets you see, the current items that you're using, right? The Horizon worlds that you're visiting. They're showing you all these experiences. That shouldn't be on an app. That should be on your headset experience. Cook it in there. Make sure that people feel compelled to get on the headset outside of just playing games. I have buddies of mine, and the people who are using Quests on a more hardcore level are playing games, but they also have their work web browser open. They play their Ghost of Tabor and then they're sending an email real quick, right? That's the kind of user that I feel like that's what Rowdy's saying. Like, give people incentive to use this, not just to play a game, not to use a singular app, but give them a whole computing experience. Give them a desktop object.
Like for hardcore users, but I'm just thinking of like for my husband or for my mom, I'm like, I want to get them an app, and it's like, oh, well, you have to do this thing on your phone. Do you even have the mobile app? And then I got to get the mobile app for them. Or like my husband getting developer mode, you have to go into the app and do the toggle. And it's like,
it's like
you need the app for stupid reasons.
It's like when, again, it comes down to like what kind of company is running this who is Meta, right? Meta comes from Facebook, right? And one of the probably biggest games that Facebook has ever had was targeted at an audience that does not play games. Like if we're thinking about Farmville, the entire audience was what you just described, right? People that don't specifically play games, that don't know a lot about these kind of things. A lot of grandmothers, a lot of older people that want to they go on Facebook, and they developed, or it wasn't Facebook that developed the app, the game at least, but there is a certain incentive there for people to be drawn back to that platform. And I think that, I mean, again, I don't like that kind of stuff because I think it's dangerous and it's manipulative, but I do think that that is probably something that we'll see appearing in a Quest device in the near future, because I think there's an incentive for people to go back in there if there is, for example, something like Farmville, but then maybe in the form of a pet or something you need to take care of, something you need to check, because otherwise, you don't get whatever points or whatever it is, or the pet dies. I don't know. I don't think they'll go that extreme, but
they're doing it. So the way I see them doing that is that they're bringing 2D apps to Quest, and so like that's basically saying, hey, all that stuff that helps you be sticky with your mobile, now we want that in headset. Like, bing, bang, boom, it's there, right? I mean, we saw Wordle, we saw, I'm trying to think of the other there's a bunch of things that are kind of making this conversion easy, that floods the store, unfortunately reduces the presence of proper VR apps. And I have yet to see what's the end state impact of that. But it does help to some extent to bridge that. These kind of apps that you're talking about, Rowdy, I don't know how I would coin that. Is that a mobile game? Is that a web browser game? Like, what was Farmville?
Again, I don't think Farmville would work now, unless you're targeting like a specific kind of audience. But technology has changed, and it's interesting because I had a discussion not that long ago with a colleague of mine who works in a similar kind of AI kind of field, and he was working on an application specifically targeted like more mental health, and just the power of being able to talk to something that responds back in an understanding and responsive manner is very compelling. It is very, very compelling for a lot of people that you have like this
positive for your mental health, you're saying?
In a way, yes, because it's like there's no judgment, like it's always listening, it's always supportive, it is always constructive, because of the way that these AI apps are often built. And we've already seen that there are people developing relationships with, for example, ChatGPT or other kind of AI applications. The entire concept of the movie Her has already happened multiple times. And I'm thinking that, again, Meta is, I think, holding that concept back a little bit because of the ethical implications of this entire concept. But for example, the video we just saw with that, that floating orb next to you, that is coming in the future. And the only reason why I think that we're not seeing it yet, because Meta has all the capabilities to do this, is ethical pushback, because you'd be developing an actual understanding relationship with a non-human entity that lives in a device that you've purchased. And then, of course, there's the entire, where does the data go? But even if Meta says, look, the data, we don't store it, we don't have it. It's the entire concept of developing this emotional relationship with something that isn't real. That is going to happen. That can happen right now. That is happening right now with, for example, people with ChatGPT and other things. But having that in a headset as a character you can speak to as a friend is very compelling, I think.
Yeah. I want to expand on that. It goes further than just software, hardware too. A company like Meta, they're too big of a ship. That ship has charted so many miles, and it has encountered every single privacy-driven red tape that you can imagine. Because, as you mentioned, because of the Facebook legacy there. That's something that I deal with what I work in my professional career, which is talking to schools and enterprise that don't trust Meta because of the Facebook association. So imagine if I'm dealing with that at a low level, imagine, governments and manufacturers and, research facilities. And another thing to note is the NPU, which is what enables local processing of AI, is XR hasn't really brought in NPU hardware into the XR2, which is the leading architecture for VR right now by Snapdragon. We don't have effective NPUs that are designed for software design yet, which will
neural processing unit.
Correct. Which
Okay.
is the ability. That's how AI, does the local side of thinking.
And so
really
you mean
fast.
if we had the hardware, you could have a local model that learns you, keeps it local, doesn't send it off to the cloud.
You can do it. Granted, you can do that over the internet. I'm just saying that there's going to be steps that are going to make this much easier and effective to be done locally.
Yep.
Once we start seeing architectures, another thing to note is
we can do it locally though. There's currently we are definitely like Apple Intelligence is all local.
Correct. Well, that's an NPU. Apple's been using NPUs on their ARM CPUs before anybody even called them an NPU.
But you can currently install a smaller local model easily on a how's it called? There's a little
like an ARM CPU. Yeah. You can definitely emulate run it. But now you're talking about using the resources that this software is meant to be using to run the application in the heads in the first place, which goes back to a limitation of hardware architecture. And I feel that we're starting to see that curve, but also why even create that curve right now when we don't have the hardware yet that can enable that. And also the reason I'm talking about all this is to make an important note that this is actually a personal rant that's been kind of brewing in my head when we talk about computing adoption. We often use terms of like, oh yeah, once these headsets get lighter or better displays, they're going to get adopted. Those two things are privilege points. When you are outside of the United States and you're looking for computer adoption, utility always becomes number one. Weight, specs, weight itself is usually third or fourth on it. It's how much can I do? Can I make a profit out of these devices? Can I do more? Can I throw as many stones and kill as many birds with one stone with this hardware that I'm adopting, right? That's why back to school sales. That's why gaming computers do really well, because you get the ability to do your schoolwork.
I'm so lost to say. Sorry.
What's computers are not adopted. So my points are my point in short is computers or any kind of technology is usually adopted for utility. It's never adopted for just one specific use case. For currently VR right now, people who are adopting the Quests, nobody's paying attention, but they're being adopted for games and a little bit of general compute. That's why web browsing, that's why multitasking is becoming a thing, even though architecturally, these devices cannot handle this. From using an operating system that's designed for one task at a time to CPUs that are designed to run one task at a time. So we are now having conversations about using these devices for more than just one use case. We're talking about AI running with software. We're talking about concurrent pets running with the application. All of that is theoretically possible, but we don't have the software nor the hardware yet to make that a reality. The only way that we can get to that point is if the computing industry realizes we're currently limited by architecture and hardware. And that's going to lead to a conversation we're going to have later on, which is using proper operating systems like Linux, right? And right now, that's what's happening. It's we're limited by Android and chips that are not meant for that. Quite plain and simple.
Yeah, I think we're a ways off for sure. So thank you. You helped me understand where you were coming from.
Sorry.
I got a little lost in the sea of that.
I got a little distracted. I know it sounds like a lot, but there was like a really big debate on the Golf Plus guys were running on Twitter where they were saying that the mainstream of VR adoption is going to be gaming and not enterprise. And I really wanted to push back against that and remind people that anybody who thinks that games are the driver of technology missed the mark. They're living in a privileged place. And I wanted to remind people of that. It's the computer industry started in places where socialism was running rampant, right? Tetris, places where computers, the Amiga, the Commodore, none of those computers were, closed source. They're not Apple. They weren't Windows. So I just wanted to remind people about that. It's thinking that gaming runs the world is a privileged mentality. And I love video games, but we can't twist that reality.
We've seen a really interesting in and out of the shoreline with respect to VR and games being one of the things that has driven it forward. But yeah, in general, compute, we've yet to see where that's really going to take us. Interesting to note the hardware limitations. For those who are interested in having a piece of the future on your face, you may want to keep an eye on XREAL. So for those who haven't tried them, XREAL sport a current capability that you can tether a pair of glasses, very lightweight glasses, very kind of similar form factors like the Ray-Ban smart glasses, tethered via USB-C to a phone, to a Steam Deck, to your laptop, and give you a lovely like OLED bright display out in front of you. They really saved my rear, saved my bacon at MetaConnect when my laptop decided to break on me. And they're currently teasing about a new event that's only on December 4th. I mean, this is 4 days away. So December 4th, 10 a.m. They keep using this hashtag AR for all. And XREAL are a company who've been through multiple revisions of their tech. Now, the next video that Rowdy will show you after that first jiggly one, which looks like a Mr. Handy is honestly jiggling some glasses around. The second one, which is an equally bizarre little clip, features one of those robot dogs like the Boston Dynamics guys, and it's going after a festive Christmas bone. But between these two, and with that AR for all hashtag, I can only imagine we're going to get an announcement that relates to, I'm hoping, a budget priced, and I'm thinking $300, just taking a whiz guess here, AR glasses to hopefully spring on the world and, do even better than the Air 2 Pros. Their previous glasses, which I was a really big fan of. I know, Adam, you've got a bunch of these kinds of glasses and have found a fit for them in your life, but I don't really honestly know what to take about from this. What are you guys seeing in this video?
The presents.
First one made more sense to me than the dog one. The dog one, maybe they're like, are they talking about like a recording feature, like spatial recording? But then why is it different? I don't know. I have many questions. It goes from like the robot dog, but the glasses view is of a pug, right? Like
the only thing I noticed, and you're gonna have to tell me because Adam, you've experimented with these types of devices more than I have, but they show the frame of the video that they're looking at, but the glasses or the head is moving away, but it's still fixed. I think that locked in space, like 6DoF pop-up display is not capable in those. Most of those glasses are to just go with where your head's looking. And so if they're suggesting that on a software basis integrated in the glasses that are at a budget level will allow basically pin and look wherever you want, that's kind of exciting. Now, I think I expect they're still tethered.
What I saw in the video is volumetric sharing, right? With the robot dog is if volumetric space sharing, which means you are seeing the same perspective as the robot dog. Thus, you can control it, but because there was a physical object that the robot saw, you were able to see a volumetric shape in the. That's why it shows you the bone, but then a virtual one on the other side.
Oh, but hold
I'm
on.
thinking.
I didn't catch that at all.
Is the dog also an XREAL product?
I don't think so.
Well, what the dog has on it, which is
I
the
understand,
displays.
but are you suggesting that the dog is watching the video and then watching the bone and then
No, you're watching what the dog sees. You're controlling the dog. So now you're not just getting a a point of view, but you're getting a volumetric point of view. So you're getting perception being given to you, which is a big. That's actually a fantasy of mine, which is giving technicians, AR glasses, and I'm putting them on, and I can control them, and being able to see.
So it's kind of like
depth.
a live, like if you were to put the Meta Ray-Bans on, take a recording, someone watches it, but live instead.
Yes.
Not
I
just
still don't get why there's a robot dog.
Well, no. Wait, hang on.
do-
That's a no. Yeah, that's a no because Ray-Bans are capturing flat. What
Correct.
Jose is talking
Well,
about,
but yeah,
it's
but-
spatial.
Spatial,
And
yeah,
the spatial recognition. So if you had a bomb squad robot dog, right, it might be important for you to be able to navigate the robot
data.
around objects, duck between things that are hanging off the ceiling, whatever the case is. But being able to send spatial data remotely would be a really cool use case. Now, I think this is a real fringe here, but Rowdy, you started asking questions. Did you get your answer?
I just don't get why there's a robot dog. Where like why does it have to be a robot dog? Because that's hella confusing.
But think about you're doing an O-rig testing. You're not going to send another human in there, but you need to see a very dark corridor that only a machine or a robot can get through. Now you're able to get the full volumetric data. So you're not just seeing a flat screen, you're getting full data of what the robot is seeing, so you can amplify and expand. You might be even able to pick up like a crack on a pipe because you're able to amplify what the robot is seeing. They're getting a depth sensor map of it. You still need something to go there and grab that data, and you need something to attach the headset to. Right? So
you know what I'm imagining here, Rowdy?
Yeah.
I'm imagining that here comes December 4th, and we get a rotating plate with a new not black, but now silver pair of XREAL Air 2s. You know,
can you imagine this?
If it's like, because I don't know, maybe it's just me. I'm getting jaded after all of these fucking XR announcements. But like, we could be so off the mark here. I have no idea what's coming. All I can say is that it excites me when they said XR for all. I mean, maybe that's a charge to say we're going to build you an economical product, because the number one thing that has prevented me from getting into these to date has just been price point. It's like, I'm not spending $500 on a pair of glasses. I'm just not going to, because it's an attachment to a device. It's kind of like the same argument people had with PSVR2. They're like, if it's more expensive than the console, I'm not buying. So I'm hopeful that there'll be something new for us from XREAL soon that will be well priced. That's all I can take from these. The technical capabilities don't seem to be any different than previous products they've already produced. So I'm guessing, but maybe these weird videos incent that we are going to get a cheap edition. I don't know. Do any of you take anything from either of those two videos?
Yeah, I just saw the robot.
Other than that,
I get excited because I that's one of the biggest limits right now, which is tele operations, which is driving people to do stuff, mechanics, those kind of use cases where you do need somebody either capable or that you can control. It's currently it's really expensive because there's robot dogs that do this already. You can just use a VR headset, but the sensors that the robot dogs have are, you know, some proprietary company you can't develop for. So by just mounting $300 glasses on top of it, now think what robotics researchers can do. If now any robot or any human that can follow directions, you just give them these glasses and you tell them, hey, you see that screw right there? You mind leaning over there? Okay, this is how you're going to turn it. Or as you mentioned, bomb disposal. Like, hey, don't cut that yellow cable until I can see what's exactly behind that yellow cable.
Bomb disposal. I know what I want. I'm going to strap exosuits to all my 3 kids, and when they need to do chores, I'm going to remotely control them and force them to do it. That's it, you kids.
Now we're talking.
I find these videos just hella confusing. You can explain them any way you want, but like it's like it could just as well be, well, we thought the dog looked cool with glasses on. That's it.
I know.
Yeah. That's what I think so too. They could have easily used a guy following directions remotely.
That would have been so much more helpful.
Yeah,
in terms of
what they use a robot dog. To be fair, that robot dog is I forgot the name of the company, but they're like $700.
Boston Dynamics, right?
No, they're not Boston Dynamics. It's a Chinese company. It's like Yai Green or something like that.
Yeah.
But these are like $400 robot dogs.
Do me just for the giggles, Rowdy. Throw back on the first XREAL video, the one with the extended arm that was jiggling the glasses. I just want to let people. Mr. Handy, I'm going to call it. No, the arm that was just shaking the glasses up and down. Anyway, so people were asking in chat. This is about XREAL. They have an upcoming event labeled AR for all. You can check out their website at xreal.com. December 4th, 10 a.m. I think that was Eastern. Keep an eye out. They're going to announce something. We don't know what. All right.
It's probably a robot dog.
So that's That's XREAL. If they come out with a robot
The
dog.
dog's name is XREAL.
Yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, the jellyfish. You're right. You see, I totally missed the bloody jellyfish. I didn't
Yeah,
even see the
I was
jellyfish.
trying to figure out how both of those things had to do with each other, seeing these two, and if they, so maybe like they're gonna have spatial recordings and then improved
Spatial
AR
anchor, too.
capabilities
Yeah.
in their next iteration of glasses. I don't know.
Or
That's my
as a
only guess.
robot dog, what we're seeing is just a dog walking.
It's all-
To me, that says one thing. The video is separate from the glasses. That's it. That's all it's saying. So the same thing is there is a fixed frame. You've got your glasses on. You don't need the beam or whatever extra device. You've got your glasses. You've got your video. You've got 6 off freedom now. Great. But if they're $1,000, I'm not buying them. So anyway, hope they're still OLED, whatever they are. Okay, so that was that. Next, another piece of technology, which many of us appreciate, is virtual desktop. And so, Kigo Dan has showered yet another gift on us. I remember a few years ago he brought us that Chicago landscape where you could look out and see busy Chicago in 5K below you. There's a new environment that's been released for virtual desktop, and it is called First Class. I would also like to call it a claustrophobic movie watching experience, not faint-hearted, but not for the hungry. If you want to sit in an airline cabin and watch a film, well, you can, but staring at drinks and snacks that are just that few feet away, you can't get them, you can't reach them. So this is not good for anyone who's on a particular diet, because it's going to make you go to the kitchen cabinet and pull out all the snacks. But honestly, it's a really nice environment, and you can look out the window and you can look at the clouds passing by ever so slowly as you watch a very well lit room that looks like you're in some form of first class. It kind of feels like second class, to be honest, but okay, we'll say first class. And that's a cool new update. You can also, if you do like me, in a nice spatial environment, you can get out of your seat and walk on the wing of the plane. You know, he doesn't want you to do that because he hasn't textured anything outside. But I felt like Superman just standing on the wing of the plane, and as I was watching through the plane glass, like my little movie that was playing in the video. That was pretty cool. I like these updates. One other thing that's really cool about Virtual Desktop that just dropped, separate thing altogether, but somewhat related, is Desk Portal. Desk Portal is something that we first saw in Workrooms, actually, from Meta, which is basically an mixed reality breakout object, I'll call it, or plane. In this case, you can draw like over your keyboard, over your desk, where you're going to grab a drink or whatever. You can create a punch out from your virtual environment. And so I'm showing a video now from Upload, who did this around a flight simulation example. They could see the keyboard and the throttle stick and HOTAS next to them, so they could just grab their stuff. And it's all done in real time. There's no latency, no discernible latency, I should say. But being able to just create a punch out view is great. Super, super helpful. You know what's also good for? Let's say you've got a little baby next to you in like a crib or something. You need to keep an eye on them, but you still want to be in your first class environment watching whatever horrible movie you're watching, and you keep an eye on your baby. Then you can draw a little box around the baby and keep an eye. Or many other things. But
you should just get a robot dog with an XREAL in front of your baby
to just jiggle.
Yeah.
And spatially capture your baby. Pass it through. So it's really cool. It's really, really handy. It's almost hidden though. I went looking for it. I'm like, where the feck is it? It's tucked away in the settings, in the bottom right-hand corner. It says Create Desk Portal. It's this like little button that looks like someone had beaten it, and it's written into the corner. And it's like, don't hit me again. Just press that button, and then you just draw with your controller, and bam, you're ready to go.
A lot of cool settings in Virtual Desktop that are kind of hidden away. Even the ability to emulate like Vive trackers. Because I don't know, you probably aren't big Avatar people, but it really makes a difference when you're turning. It'll give almost ghost trackers on your body so that when you turn, it doesn't look so like unrealistic. It's hard to describe, but it's
Interesting.
just a lot of really cool things. But again, it's something that you have to like, oh, you have to go here, and then you have to go here, and then scroll down a bit. Like it's sort of tucked and hidden away, but neat feature.
Nice.
Maybe.
Yeah, not heard about that one before. So would you use that, for example, so that's useful because I'm planning to do that VR chat bullet time agent world I mentioned last podcast.
Oh,
with my
nice.
wife. If I'm in VR chat and I apply those virtual trackers and I'm using, let's say, virtual desktop at the same time, that'll help smooth out the animation of my character. Is that what you're saying? Because
if you're turning instead of your character would normally then do a full turn, but since it's thinking you have trackers, it's more your waist is turning like how you actually are turning in real life. Like obviously it's not going to track your arms or legs, but when it comes to torso and where it determines what you're actually doing, are you actually doing an about face or are you just kind of leaning and rotating? Like it's
cool. All right.
It's easier to see than to try to describe, really.
Okay,
but
I got it.
Look
Makes
better.
sense. Makes me very sad for my Deca move, however, because I used to love that. Nice little hip tracker.
R.I.P.
R.I.P. Deca. Definitely dead as a dodo now. Like a dodo. Sorry, a little bit of a joke there for anyone around on the scene for long enough. Okay, well with that, we just saw a plane. So why don't I take you to a better plane? Just released Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024.
Oh, this would make my computer explode, probably.
100%. So we're going to run a little video from SimHanger Flight Simulation. That's the name of the YouTube channel. Just to showcase Flight Sim 2024 and how it looks. Fly through a city. This looks like, if you're an audio listener, imagine when you fly down to like San Francisco and Google Earth. You see all the pretty buildings around you, highly detailed, well mapped. Except for in this case, you're playing a VR flight sim game. You're in the cockpit and you are flying around the city. So this looks incredible. Now you are likely going to need a 30 or 40 series NVIDIA card in order to, or the equivalent on the other side of the house, to run this smoothly. But yeah, frames of 50 and upwards frames per second are possible. And honestly, it looks like an easy way for flight simmers to disappear for the next couple of years. Yeah. This looks absolutely phenomenal.
I'm not even a flight simmer, and I would want to try this just to go to like fly around Vegas, old vacation spots, or like what? I don't know. How does that even work? Like, is it rendering a certain area ahead of time? Like, I don't understand. Maybe it's best that I don't know, to be honest.
I'm glad to say I don't have the answer. Yeah, but it looks amazing. The saddest part about this for me is that I've had
crash. Oh.
I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen anyone try it yet, but I should probably look into that. But no, I still haven't even tried Flight Simulator 2020. So,
geez,
I need to do that. So I might do that.
You need to start at 20 because they follow each other up, right? The story is continuous.
That's right. The story continues. No, but I think like for the amount of upgrades that they've added to the previous Flight Sim, I feel like it's the perfect time because they'll have tuned it as best as they can. It may possibly run on my 20 series card, maybe. Maybe
you're even worse off than I am. Jesus.
Oh, I'm bad. Yeah. So I still have. I'm stuck with my 2080 Super. Because of that special virtual link port. I don't want to move past the virtual link port yet, because then I would need something special. Yeah, one of these days, one of these years, I'll upgrade my rig. But for now, I'm happy. So that's Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. Are any of you flight simmers? I don't think any of us are.
I haven't, but every time I see Flight Sim, I remember like going to like the military VR expos because they use this stuff for training, and they take the role playing to a whole different level. Like there's plane academies where they actually use like their own voice servers, and they have people who are pretending to be like dispatchers and airline, operators and all that, and you can hear them talk in real time, and they actually charge a service monthly for you to like layer this on top of your game.
Damn, so, that's cool. Yeah. Oh, that's sweet. That's like better than a hot phone line. Some air chatter. Hell yeah. That's all right, simmers. Right. Well, so that is our kind of small news bites over and done with. Let's get on to the main event. So you might have seen the title of this podcast. It is D is for Deckard. For those of you who don't know what Deckard is, it is I'm going to call it the code name, the community's code name for whatever next VR headset Valve might be cooking up, which has been rumored to be, kind of like Quest, a standalone device and potentially pivoting off of the same kind of architecture and system engineering that they have brought about with the various revisions to Steam Deck. So marrying these two worlds is definitely something that we'd like to see happen. And quite recently, SadleyItsBradley has started to post a bunch of different leaks just earlier this week. And we're going to talk about that. But before that, I have a little bit of an intro to this. So I'm going to say this just to continue on from the topics a bit earlier on. Okay, so remember, you died. You went to heaven, and you're just through those pearly gates, sitting upon some wafty clouds with a pair of controllers, one in each hand. God, aka Gabe Newell, whispers confidently in your ear, "Even archangels get to play with these sick puppies," pointing down to his hands. In his hands lie the leaked and shoddily 3D printed controllers from SadleyItsBradley and other satanic cult dwellers from his community. So it's time to react to what we've learned here. First off, the first leak was the Roy controllers, which look quite a bit like a all-black Quest 3 controller, but with one quite important difference. The location of the analog sticks is kind of switched with where the buttons are, and on the controller that doesn't have face buttons, it's got a D-pad. It's got a D-pad. I don't believe we've seen a D-pad yet on a VR controller to date. Of course, it's there on the old Steam Deck. So Steam Deck has it, and this thing kind of looks like just a broken out Steam Deck. So you've got your D-pad, you got your buttons, and your thumbsticks are kind of in the middle. And then you've also got, just to compare, the orientation is thumbsticks at the center, buttons on the outside. So I kind of feel like
center it a bit more, Tim.
Okay, like this.
No, I meant the other one.
All right. Hold on. I'm just covering my face with the Steam Deck. It's totally normal. There you go. So this is the inside part. And so the analog stick is on the outside. Whereas with the Steam Deck, the analog sticks are on the inside. And so that's the difference. Now, the other thing that's going to get Rowdy excited, I'll come to in a second, is the third controller, so we can get this show and tell portion over. That's the original Steam controller. Steam controller had kind of a virtual D-pad. Hey, he's got his too. Look at that. And we've got buttons and all kinds of stuff here. So this was an interesting device. Definitely a hardware leap for Valve. And I just want to go back to the kind of first leak before we get talking about that one, because there's a second leak we'll talk about as well. The Roy controllers sporting a D-pad. What do you all think? Is that a smart idea? Are you excited about that? Adam, you're an Index user, or were an Index user. Do you still use your Index?
Well, for some things, but I've been mostly using my Quest now, to be completely honest, the Quest 3. It's weird. I mean, so is it only the left controller that has the D-pad and the right still has face buttons?
Yeah,
Okay,
the right has four
still...
face buttons and the left has a quite squarish looking D-pad.
I think the D-pad idea is interesting. I just don't know, like, is 4 on one side too much? Like, I'm trying to figure out how because I already have trouble when they're like, oh, do the top face button on the left control. Now what if you're like, do the bottom button on the right controller, but the left row, not the right row. Man. Like, but so I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I want to see more how it's gonna work and how it's gonna fit in also to the games we have now. Like, was that gonna, if that's what it's meant for?
I love the point about confusion, because at the rear of the controller, I mean, we've already got, so they've got a grip button. They've doubled the face buttons. They got 4 face buttons and analog stick. They've got like the depressed Oculus or Meta face button. They've got a Steam button that allows you to get back to like Steam or menu on the opposite controllers. But on the rear, instead of 1 trigger, they've got 2. They've got 2. So kind of like, kind of like the Steam Deck, where you've
Yeah.
got two.
Oh, like a bumper and a trigger
Yeah.
and a
Yeah.
grip button.
Yeah.
Yes. So they've got a lot. So I agree with you.
Is it a lot though?
The thing is, if they allow you to do parity, kind of like what we have now. I mean, essentially, the controllers that the Quest has is a broken apart. It's kind of like a broken apart like Xbox controller.
No way. Wait. Did you say the Quest is?
Yeah.
No way. The Quest is missing 3 fundamental buttons.
Go on.
And that's I would say that the Roy leak is a lot closer to a split Xbox controller.
I see where you're going from. Okay, so what I'm saying is, when you're talking about playing flat games in VR, we have the capability to play with a virtual split controller. So that's the point I was trying to make. So a couple of years ago, we were kind of glad that instead of sitting at a computer with a keyboard and a mouse, you could finally kind of emulate a gamepad. I agree with you. Was not a complete gamepad. So coming back to your point, I agree. The Roy controllers look like they honestly, just like they did with PlayStation last year, cut the Steam Deck in half, split it apart, and now we've got the complete set. But it excites me because on the counter argument to Adam, I think you were about to make the argument there of basically saying, is it too complicated? And then Jose, I think you were chiming in with, yes, maybe we want it. If they have parity, then a bunch of games are going to work out of the box. And that's exciting to me because now Jose's got me hooked on the drug that is emulation.
And also the motion, you said that this is the first motion controller with a lot of buttons. And I think it's with the D-pad, I think it's very important that we say first motion controller for VR that has a D-pad, because y'all forgetting one of the most prominent motion controllers out there with a D-pad.
Man. Good
the
lad.
Wii controller. And there's a reason why I wanted to talk about the Wii controller specifically. It's what any game console, any company that builds hardware, they start with the controller. The controller is how you interface with a console. And, Valve may call this a leak. Bradley may call it a leak. It is not a leak. This was Valve purposely letting the PC VR industry that was under turmoil in the last week, having debates about what the future of VR looks like. They accidentally let people know what the intentions are for their hardware and their software vision for computing. And it's understanding what adoption looks like. It is giving people the ability to use all type of interfacing with games, regardless of the medium. Let's say if you're playing a flat screen game with motion controllers, imagine all those games that were stuck on the Wii will now be able to be brought into VR through flat gaming with motion. Think about all of the flat to VR games that are adding a motion layer to a 3D, 2D game, and then think about VR games, right? So they're pretty much ensuring that every single user, whether they prefer a Quest because they like motion games, or they prefer an Apple Vision Pro because they like the sit down and a little bit of immersion, and the hardcore VR user, now you have one controller medium for them all.
Yep.
Okay, so
it's the old One Ring proposition here.
Yeah.
Steam Link was just the start. They're kind of hoping to do more of like an Xbox cloud gaming, but for Steam.
Yeah.
And I guess you could do that if you have all the buttons for non-traditional VR.
And you only need those set of controllers, and
Correct.
you're good.
Mhm.
I hate carrying around an Xbox controller with my headset, right? So it's cool that we'll have the actual controllers that are meant to be with the headset at all times, also work for flat gaming, but also works for immersive gaming. I go back to the argument I made earlier about the Quest kind of it's almost natively designed to have additional accessories. Like if I want to play flat gaming, I got to put the controllers down and grab an Xbox controller. And anybody who has paired their Xbox controller to their headset or even the Bluetooth headphones, they know that the Quest has terrible Bluetooth to handle certain connections. So if it's bad at handling a Bluetooth audio connection, what makes you think it's going to handle, rapid input precision? So those are the realities that I love, that just by giving you a leak of the controllers, they immediately let developers know, is like, hey, all of those games you made for the Wii are going to come in here. Any game that you made for the XR2 Quest 1, 2, 3 or Pro is going to work here. Any 2D game that you created is going to work here. Any PC game that you converted.
So exciting.
It's incredible.
Now I'm on board. Now that I can see it that way. Like,
damn it. I kind of did want us to buy another headset, but I think it's really exciting to see that come. And I tend to be the guy who's like, I want it to be simpler. I want fewer buttons. I see the seam in the design, and that might not be final, but I go, my human crud's gonna build up in there. Like, I tend to be the commissery, like, just keep it simple. And I generally like the Quest design where we've evolved to now, after battery doors were flying off in Beat Saber, and like they've learned a lot of lessons, right? But what I tend to see in Valve when they make big hardware plays is they do a lot of iteration in-house, and then they do a bigger leap. And we've already seen that. So, like,
they go all in.
The re-engineering on the Steam Deck, even from version 1 to version 2, the index and what they learned from that, the original, partnership with HTC on the Vive, like, they're making big jumps. And when they make that impact, they actually have a real, like, effect on the industry. Yeah. And so I'm very excited for what kind of like when Apple came in, right? When Apple came in, they changed what competition meant in the XR landscape. And I think Valve is jockeying to do just that. And honestly, if Nintendo haven't yet considered, with their Switch 2 plans and everything else to like head towards VR, Valve's about to take a chunk out of them in the next 5 to 10 years because of what they're going to do with this marketplace. So it's very exciting. Damn it. Gabe, you're making me like, don't have a heart attack anytime soon, because I want you to keep making cool shit for the next like 20 years, please.
And it goes down to the operating system. I want to mention the operating system. Valve released a documentary recently about their creation of Half-Life 2, and they talked about the importance of creating technology before you even think about how you're going to tailor a story to that technology. Think about building devices with that same mentality. They are understanding that there's going to be people who are going to buy these devices to play games, but they're going to be convincing perhaps their parents to say, Mom, yes, this is actually a computer. I will be able to do my schoolwork with this. I can connect this on my TV and have a keyboard. I can actually, do my computer work with this. It is... So in order for you to have those use cases, you need an operating system that's designed for a computer. That's where Valve recently did a partnership with Arch Linux, which is one of the most prominent and fundamental and important Linux kernels out there. This is operating systems that are designed to run on refurbished computers or people that just simply don't want to pay the Microsoft or the Mac licensing fees to use them, right? So
exciting, man.
It's
operating system level. Like, when you said earlier, you put that pin in and you said, oh, we're going to talk about Linux. I was like, where's that coming back? And then you dropped the bombshell here. It's so important. Like, I am really impressed as not a Linux guy. How easy it's been to interface with the deck, mod it, update it, make use of it. And it's bloody stable.
And that's all new. It's important that we note that, because Valve has been trying to make Linux a prominent, important OS for gaming for almost 10 years. The problem was architecture, the CPU. This is the same exact arguments I was having about Valve almost 10 years ago with their introduction to Steam machines. I see the potential, but we're not there yet. Similar conversations are happening now with ARM CPUs and the XR2s, and the only way that we can turn these, what I consider inferior processors compared to like general CPUs that are running laptops, is the operating system. So if there's anything that could like convince people like me to start watering down our opinions of maybe Qualcomm or ARM CPUs being superior enough to handle an operating system, is to tailor it with an operating system that can handle it. And I think whatever Valve designs, if it does have that general operating system, even if it runs on a lower end CPU that I would want, we at least now have a pathway of recording all your stuff in headset, pairing up, doing anything that you require for the headset within the headset, because it's running Linux, you can probably try different versions of Linux. So it's giving you an ability to customize and create, right? Companies like Live, for example, right? Windows has something called services, which is applications that are running embedded to the OS.
Yep.
Right. So Live, for example, to make us like an example, they could build this into the OS. Right. They don't have to pay like Microsoft or Mac to build an app or licensing fees because it's open source.
Yeah.
Right. So
the customization capability is so important. And it really does like level the playing field. So that's really cool. You made a statement earlier, though. I want to pick on because I'm curious about it. As a dad, 3 kids, I'm like, my kid comes to me and I'm like, hey, Dad, for my schoolwork, I'm gonna, the new Deckard, it just came out. Would you mind? And I'm like, no, I don't believe that. But what are you thinking there? So like, you're seeing this as even potentially being a step. Is it a competitor like on a budget side with AVP, or is it more a competitor for Quest in your mind?
It's a competitor to either of them. I think it's going to stand on its own simply because it's giving you the operating system unlock, right? When you go on the Steam Deck, for example, when you hit exit, there's an exit to desktop. So that means you're exiting the nice flashy user interface. Now you're on a computer. Now you can install your web browser. You can open up your tabs.
Hardcore XREAL mixed with Quest, sort of like, because you can really use it on anything. You're not stuck to just their system if you don't want to be. Like that would be really cool. And then I could actually see well, I guess depending on the comfort of the headset, whatever, I could really see myself actually using this thing more, and it just replace a bunch of devices potentially.
And it's Linux. That's the cool part. It's community driven. You don't have to wait for the official updates. It's going to be it's Linux based. So anything, and then there's the cool part, which is the investments that Valve has done with Linux, is there's application layers like Proton that will allow you to natively run any game that runs on Windows to run on Linux. That also includes applications. So Microsoft Office now runs on your Deckard, or without much tweaking. Now, whatever Discord app or whatever tools you're using for Windows natively run on this.
Cool. So I want to ask Adam a question then, because as a longtime Valve Index lover, what are the things about the Index that need to come over, and what needs to go into the graveyard? Like what needs to get out of that headset when they make this conversion?
It's the only reason I use it now is for really quick things. Like I need to test something on PC VR real quick, and I don't want to futz with virtual desktop, even though that takes like less than 5 minutes. And that's honestly the only reason I use it for. So I think I need to be able to take it out of just being tethered to my computer to being able to use in other systems if I wanted to. Like I don't mind if it's not always, like if you need a cord to attach it to a PC. I want the option. I don't want to be forced to only use it on my PC.
You want it to be a standalone headset with a tether option.
Mm-hmm.
What about audio? Audio stands out to me as a really important piece of the first. Are they scaling that back? Are they keeping similar headphones? Like
best person to ask, because again, I use the Quest like default, speakers. Audio. So I like, as long as it doesn't sound like shit, but my bar for shit is also probably a lot lower than yours. So I don't know. Audio is not a big. I do like the design of. I will miss the over ear. I don't know if they're going to end up going with that with the next one though, because that is just so comfortable for me, and I like that I could just like. If I need to, like, it's loud enough where I feel like I do need to physically move them up to hear someone sometimes. But it's just like, as someone who doesn't like these style headphones and gets ear infections and crap, like I don't want things in or over my ear. I would just want them hovering as much as I can.
Okay. So aside from audio, any other, I mean, the panel's obviously going to be better than it was back then. From a hardware side, I guess we've covered it. Chat was asking, is this going to be inside out? So that's a big change. Like as an Index user, is the precision of laser-based outside-in tracking something you're willing to lose in order to go to a standalone tetherless device with these sporty Roy controllers? And if yes, why are you willing to make that sacrifice?
I think we've seen with Quest now that it is possible, and Valve is a big ass company, so they're not like just some random headset maker where I'd be like, I don't know. Like I think I trust Valve enough that they'll do it right. But that is funny that you make that point though, because I was just talking to people. I've done tutorials for the Vive trackers, and I'm like, yeah, the ultimate trackers are cool, but you just don't get the same latency as if you just have lighthouses. Like you don't have to calibrate them nearly as often. But that's again a very specific use case. I don't really use my trackers often enough for that to be an issue. When I'm just playing my quests normally, unless I'm playing in the dark or something stupid, like I don't notice that big of a deal anymore like I used to with even the 2, I would say. I think the technology is improving enough and we're kind of getting over it a little more, where it's getting better enough where, I don't need to have my arms way back here to be tracked or whatever. Like it's fine. I just, and I trust Valve. I think that if they do decide to do inside out tracking versus Lighthouse,
they will definitely. There's no way that they're going to be using base stations still for tracking. I think that would be a step back. I wouldn't
go that far. I would say this. The current iteration of base stations, the reason that it is designed like that is I don't want to disrespect Valve's engineers, but it is a skill issue, right? It is the way that to quickly explain is it's a spinning laser. It creates gaps with those lasers, and based on those gaps, mathematically, it's using that to coordinate, where the controllers are in your headset. So there is a pathway that maybe the engineers this entire time have been figuring out how to make these lasers smaller, maybe to the point that it is a tiny little adapter that can just plug onto a wall, but it will still need a cable. I do think that outside in is still going to have a pathway there because of what Adam mentioned. There is still going to be a positional that infrared creates, but that doesn't mean that Valve is just going to make that the only option. I would say to what Adam said is
the reason why I say that is like it's a problem that is like 97% solved. Indeed, for that there's probably an audience for that for that 3% that is left there. But the algorithm that has been implemented to estimate positional is too good now. Yeah. So it's a problem that is kind of solved, and we don't need that anymore. The only pushback that I would say, and I know, Adam, that you said, Valve is a company you trust. Valve is a company that does have a reputation of binning products as well rather fast.
Yep. Yes.
They do a lot of R&D work. There's numerous devices. It's kind of like Google and their software products, right? They announce a lot of different things. Well, I mean, the things are there.
Right, but Valve
there's
does
a lot of them.
They bin stuff that doesn't work.
I
would say
but
Google
they do commercialize
stuff
it.
that works. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but it's I don't know if it works, but I mean, there's a lot of Valve products that work as well, and then we don't see iterations from them.
That I agree with.
Name some that you're thinking of, Rowdy, just to help.
Well, for example, the Steam controller is one of them. We have how is it called, the Steam Link, or that little device that you could
the box that would help.
Broke my heart.
Exactly.
Yes, that was a cool idea, though.
I love the Steam Link. Yeah.
The thing is, what they attempted with Steam Link, they solved for better, and took on another market with Steam Deck. Like, it was an amazing pivot. So, those iterations are quite important, and the engineering that goes behind each step is well thought through. So I agree with Adam's point that Valve do their thinking, and I trust them not to do a half-assed job of it. But Rowdy, when you're saying they stop selling it, they stop maintaining it, there's no more software updates, the thing is dead, right?
Steam Machines is another one that wasn't specifically made by Valve, but I mean, they were heavily supported and advertised by them.
But they weren't ready, right? Like if I go back to Steam Link, the networking infrastructure wasn't ready for desktop sharing. CPUs and GPUs were not. GPUs were fighting the ability to use this to stream a desktop without a monitor attached. Windows was breaking a lot of compatibility layers. There was so much stuff happening behind the scenes that didn't allow these products to evolve. But going back to what you mentioned, Rowdy, that 97% has been figured out. Valve specifically has figured out that 97% on all current leading ecosystems, right? They have Steam Link working on Apple Vision Pro, they have Steam Link working on Quest devices.
Yep.
They added eye tracking, mouth tracking with the Quest Pro. So all of these different or slightly different geospatial creating systems, Valve already like bastard them. So that's kind of where I've been talking about what I see the Deckard being is. You mentioned the Steam machines. It is Valve reattempting through learning the mistakes of the past. I don't see Valve coming out the woodwork and say, "Hey, this is 4 different headsets running the same operating system." Instead, they're going to create a low entry point hardware that a lot of companies are going to imitate. Look at the ROG Ally to the Steam Deck. Similar CPU architecture, but the ROG Ally is way more powerful.
Right.
So that's a really good point. So that's a really good point, Jose. So if Valve introduces an easily copyable, low price, entry level headset that can do a bunch of things, like what we've just spent the last 30 minutes talking about, does that have a net larger impact on the world's adoption of VR than Apple's Splash did?
Simply because it opens up the floodgates. What Gabe Newell himself knows in its operating systems. He started at Microsoft. He knows how adoption of software and computers begin with. If you go to any seminar where Gabe Newell is talking about Linux, he talks about the importance of interoperability. No man gets left behind. No software gets left behind. That's why Proton has done so well with the Steam Deck, is that it's allowing Windows applications, games that were stuck in that ecosystem, to now come over to Linux. And the developers are realizing, oh, wait, I can make it even better. So now they're making them natively run on Linux. And that opened up a pathway for game developers to target the Steam Deck as the lowest margin. That means that it will run on a Switch, but it will run on the highest gaming consoles, all the way up to high-end PCs that are custom built. I truly believe that's what Valve is going for, PC VR. And what's holding VR right now is mixed reality. We call it PC VR for a reason and not PC XR. We don't have augmented reality, computer vision on an open source level that people can do mixed reality on PC really well, right? And there's also no way currently for you to build native mixed reality applications unless you are running a MetaQuest developed game that are using the APIs on the headset, but it happens to be running on the computer. But that computer vision is still locked behind the headset. There's going to come a moment where that floodgate itself is going to get disrupted, and I think that's what Valve is doing. I truly see them releasing a super low budget, affordable PC XR headset.
Name a price here, Jose. What level are you thinking?
$300, $400.
Holy shit!
Because companies have a goal above everything, and it's to sell more apps. Valve is a store company, so they don't care about the device that you're using. That's the reason why they give up on these products, is they're just looking to expand their store. Once somebody else comes out that does that better for them, they'll enable them.
Right. So I disagree for a couple of points, because although I agree that Valve is like the Steam store that's their thing, but there's number of things, and the reason why that happens is because of the way that Valve operates. Valve is a company that has a completely different infrastructure in terms of the way that teams are created compared to like probably 99% of all the other companies that are out there. Is that, like what teams find interesting, teams work on, which means that they have an enormous R&D budget. So, and sometimes cool things come out of that. The problem though is that very often those teams either move to different projects or they leave, which means that a lot of the products that they develop, they don't specifically get discontinued. It is just that the original team that has worked on them, it kind of moves and goes to a different kind of project, which means that technology eventually catches up and those products become replaced by something else, and then they discontinue it. And that's kind of what's been happening a lot. And although I agree that, Valve is a Steam store company and they want to push a Steam store, I don't think that is what we're seeing here. Again, this is an R&D project where they know there will be an audience for, so they're releasing it, but there is no reason for us to believe, at this point at least, that this is something that they're going to continue afterwards developing, working on.
That I agree with.
And pushing the technology. And in terms of commercial driver, I don't think Valve is a company that is really because of their monopoly market on the Steam, on the Steam store and PC gaming. I don't see them as needing this device in order to get more commercial exposure. While on the contrast, Apple is a company that locks people in and brings out devices that convince people to jump into their ecosystem. Valve is not really interested in that because everybody is already in their ecosystem because they need the Steam store to play games. They don't need this device to convince people to go more to the Steam store or to lock them in more because it's not going to have an impact there.
So
no, I fully agree with you. I don't even think a Deckard will even release. What I see is Valve having really, really powerful hooks with every single leading headset that releases, but also the controllers themselves. I don't know if you guys have heard of Stadia.
Jose, before you move on, we know it's. What do you mean by that? What do you mean it won't release?
What Rowdy's saying is true. The Valve doesn't build products for the sake of building products. They're not going to do this to expand their market. What I do see them doing really well is leading the industry, which is what the Valve Index did. Right now, what's holding the industry back is mixed reality and open source augmented reality. It's being led by companies like SnapLens, and there's a lot of companies that do mixed reality and they own the technology really well to the core, but they're not opening it up to the PC industry. It's all locked behind specialized chipsets like the ARM-based XR2 with Snapdragon. If Valve has any intention of releasing a product that will quote unquote disrupt and allow other companies to do this really well, is to disrupt the open sourceness of mixed reality. It's enabling games that work really well in mixed reality, but now bring in other smaller optic companies, display companies, processor companies that have portfolios of software that, that run on PC for many years, but they haven't had a medium to release this at a affordable, consumable level, right? Because if you...
So do you think that they're just prototyping inside?
Yes.
And that's what's been leaked,
essentially? I fully agree. I think that they're prototyping and they're perhaps working on a controller that maybe connects to your router, and maybe it allows any headset like the Apple Vision Pro to have motion controllers, like that other company that's doing something similar, which we are, once again, that company that's doing the motion controller, I forgot the name of it for Apple Vision Pro, they're holding the machine learning code for that. They're close sourcing that because that's where the money is. Everybody wants to hold on to that data. That's the money maker. It's the algorithm that allows you to make VR look really good in mixed reality. The depth sensors, all of that technology is closed source right now. If Valve does have a excuse, quote unquote, to release a headset, it's to give open cameras, PC XR to every developer, regardless of the scary implications, the legal implications, the league, all of those implications be damned, because it's an open source device. So now, I guess you'll have to create legal frameworks like that, just like you're dealing with guns or something. But that's PCs,
actually,
right?
That's that. So you talked about mixed reality and kind of taking this to open source. One thing that's been dramatically different between Apple Vision Pro and Meta's approach is the Quest allows developers to kind of see the environment around you, deal with it. AVP has boundaries on it.
Yeah.
Where do you think Valve's going to land with that?
That is not allowing you to see through the headset and giving you special ways to interact with that data is not the same as giving you access to that data. We're talking about Meta, like Meta's letting you access the mixed reality cameras, but that API has restrictions, like, don't use depth sensors when you're looking at clothes, right? Or they have a lot of barriers there, guardrails there that were designed because of legal reasons, because of the social network relationships, also because these headsets are in schools. There's a lot of reasons why. The problem is that when a company starts telling you what you can and can't use with a device, you're accidentally stagnating innovation, because not everybody's going to be paying those licensing fees. So by
you're also creating another market, right? You're saying, okay, will someone come out with the ability that allows this?
Yes.
And so that's why I'm wondering, like, where do you think that Valve is going to end up landing? I mean, so are you saying that from what you've seen,
my prediction is
Meta and Apple are both gonna eventually open up dev tools?
I don't see them opening up. I see them being forced to, because if Valve either releases, high-end open source SDKs for mixed reality, then now all of the mixed reality engineers can like layer this on top of it. And now, the beauty of PC and openness empowers all these technologies. Or two, they release a headset with all of this that forces the hand out of, Meta and everybody else. Because if you're a company, let's say like Lenovo, who is talking to Meta about building a headset that's closed source, why will Lenovo do that when they can work with an open source operating system, and then they can build their own guardrails and not use the guardrails that Meta dictates?
So it's a significant industry pivot to have Valve move in on this point. Okay. Yeah. So you guys have like made really interesting points. Just in listening to that, Adam, and reflecting on your knowledge of Valve's past and kind of as an end user as well. Anything else to throw in the ring there? Any other thoughts? Are you excited for this thing? Do you want a D-pad on your controller?
I've got a dumb thought. Like, it wouldn't make sense, but I wonder if there's a world where Valve could possibly, I don't even know if it's possible, but like, can you have inside-out tracking and base station support if you choose to? Because then, I mean, I think the existing PC VR, users are slowly dying off, as a lot of us are kind of over our indexes and moving over to Quests. But that, again, I still love my base station. Like, I know that we've gotten really, really good when it comes to inside-out tracking, but there's something about base stations that's like, it's not really ready. It doesn't have to die yet. Like, especially when you're actually using like things like trackers, and you can see how bad it actually can really be. Not so. But then I'm also thinking about, okay, if they are adding that capability, they'd have to add something to the controllers, to the headset, in addition to inside-out tracking. Would that add to price? Would that add to weight? So I don't know. It would be interesting if they could be, because I don't think no other headset does that, right? Inside out and light base station.
That I'm aware of.
Oh, they do Pimax. I think Pimax with the front plate thing attachment.
Oh, but that's like an addition, right? Like you have to buy. Yeah. So, and that was, I don't know, it's kind of stupid,
so I think the way that usually industry or tech industry at least work is that, whoever is the leading the developer in the industry, the leading company in the industry, whatever they dictate, the other ones will follow after a certain term. Perfect example is, for example, everyone said that Apple was crazy when they removed the headphone jack from their phone. Good luck buying a new phone right now from a different company that still has a headphone jack. I mean, that's something that happens. And with Meta coming out with a headset that came out with inside-out tracking, it kind of revolutionized the entire industry. Even though Valve definitely is still possible that they bring out a device for now that maybe has both of those combined, that is not where this technology is headed. And if they do it, eventually that will still get phased out, because all of the other ones are taking over whatever the leading is doing.
I agree with that.
That is a doornail.
And also, there's going to be devices that are going to potentially incorporate the base stations, right? That's a whole different field, but there's smart materials, right? There's going to be a whole industry of small electronics, like your little bookshelf speakers can probably have a little camera on it. That
just AI now for like motion capture and stuff. AI can do a lot of that now. So
it's interesting because, like, I feel like we're building to the point where, I mean, a lot of homes these days have so many cameras already. Why can't we tap into that network, leverage that data to then give the better tracking? Because
the walled garden, baby.
There's so many walled gardens, but like the the engineer in me is frustrated and I hate base stations because I don't want to be putting stuff up, drilling holes, like feck all of that. I've been through it with the Vive, with the HTC Vive, and like I don't need to go back to that again. That was a huge box of like 27 parts. No, thank you. I like it more simple, but like there's something to be said for precision and accuracy. Like you can tell. It's the same thing with the interpolation that we're talking about when we talk about reprojection. Like your brain knows it's not accurate. It's not right. It's not perfect. There's artifacts there. And when it comes to tracking, you get these funny little behaviors that you just pick up when you're playing. Whatever it is you're experiencing, and you're like, this just isn't quite right. And so like I want us to get back there. Yeah.
I think it's important to know that too, is that cameras can be expensive, but they're not like frictionally expensive. It truly goes back to what I was saying. It's the algorithm. It's what powers these cameras themselves is the real moneymaker. And we need a way to, in order for all of this to exist, there has to be a open protocol, right? What HTML did for web browsers and created web parity was the open sourceness, quote unquote, of it. We don't have that for tracking technologies right now.
Do we have that for mixed reality though?
No. Well,
we don't, right? Because like OpenXR doesn't.
That's not, you're looking at proprietary companies. OpenXR, there's Meta's XR. There is no open source mixed reality protocols and APIs. And I truly believe that if Valve is looking for an excuse, quote unquote, to build something, it's simply that. It's disrupting the layers that are currently making money incorrectly. You're not going to innovate if you're creating friction there.
Well, I will tell you this much. I want to see an XR war between Valve and Nintendo. I would love that next year. I will accept it in 2026.
Nintendo has to have even an inkling. At least we're getting leaks of something from Valve. I haven't seen shit from Nintendo.
There's been little bits. Patent-wise, actually, with the Switch 2, I believe, related to VR. Now, they had the Labo series of manufactured cardboard experiences, which was kind of shite, but whatever. Some of it was quite cool. And again, harkening back 20 bloody years to the Wii wand you just waggled in front of me, which I remember buying for myself as like a pat on the back. You're into college now, boy. Present for myself. God damn, it's been so long. That was wonderful. Like, because if one thing that Nintendo does very well, it's bring people with like this ingenuity through gaming controllers to games that are built for hardware that you're not priced out of. Like, yeah, you might spend a fortune once you bought all their different peripherals, but like to see them truly make a play where Microsoft have been sorely absent in VR hardware and actually try to go after gamers in that space where, again, the price point isn't super high. Even the technology, the resolution, whatever, isn't like super high. It's just about what's the gaming experience I'm going to get from it. And I don't care about their IPs, but I just want to see Nintendo make a play. Like Sony's have made their play. They've done very well with it from my measure. I would love to see Nintendo do it. And I want to see Valve try to cut their knees off, with whatever it is they have to give. I would love to see that battle.
I mean, geez, you're talking about walled garden, and then there's Nintendo, and that's going to be super mega.
That's why I truly believe Valve is the only one that can do it. There has to be I think about that a lot. The future isn't going to be built within companies that have incentives to sell other products. Like the Apple Vision Pro, you can immediately see all of the right decisions being done from when building it, except the fundamental, most important one, which is the operating system. You can feel it when you use this headset that maybe somebody at Apple was like, you can't install Mac OS on this thing because that means the death of the MacBook line. And we need a company that reaches that similar decision and doesn't think like that they say, oh, this is going to ensure that all companies copy us. And the only company I can think of that is either Google or Valve. Because if Google makes a general purpose XR headset running on Android, people are going to every single OEM and their mothers are going to copy it. Valve is going to do this, hopefully with open source, and that's something that I wanted to mention. One last thing about this topic, which is the fear, because I keep talking about my optimism. My biggest fear is, Rowdy said it himself, people tend to pick the victor when you're building products at the end of the day. is Valve working with Qualcomm and Snapdragon, and Snapdragon cutting a really nice deal with Valve where they say, hey, you can have, the open sourceness of Linux, but when it comes to accessing the cameras or the sensors, you're off limits, which means...
Hang on, I'm missing a piece here. So Qualcomm's...
the CPU manufacturer.
Right. But they aren't supporting Linux devices.
Well, they are. That's what
Android, aren't they?
The rumors are that Valve has been prototyping their Deckard on XR2 hardware. There has been leaks. There has been, SadleyItsBradley has posted quite a bit about it, that the hardware device that they're targeting is the Snapdragon XR2. Maybe they're doing that only for testing.
That's what I was thinking. See, like that seems like a testing thing, because your whole Linux argument and their progress with Steam Deck seems to be the way forward.
They don't align. Correct. That's
okay.
There's a fear here where people are telling me like, oh, Valve is potentially making an ARM-based locked headset that will allow you to connect to the Steam Deck, which is running open Linux. And to me, that's not really... It will definitely allow them to make a cheap headset. It will allow them to compete with the Quest.
Right, but it's a huge compromise against the vision that you just spent the last...
I'm gonna be honest though. If we're talking about large commercial adoption, I would still prefer a company that whose main product is that commercial adoption, because both Google and Valve are two companies that I would not want them to be. For example, the Pixelbook.
Yeah.
There are so many schools that bought into the Pixelbook, and they have thousands of laptops that are completely unusable right now because discontinued.
I seen them myself.
Yeah, so commercial adoption.
So so I heard your worry, Jose. In other words, if they compromise and they go with Qualcomm, do a partnership and go kind of halfway to their vision, we're not getting all the beautiful things that you just spoke about. So, Rowdy, when you're talking about the potential for abandonment, you don't want Valve to you don't want them to drop hardware and 2 years later say, yeah, lights off? Or what's your concern there?
It's more like the discontinuation of support, where they bring out this product, it is revolutionary, a lot of people buy into it, but a year later, because Valve is not the company that continues to develop on that technology because they've maybe moved on to a different project, we then see companies like Meta, like Apple, who do have their closed source products come out with competitors that are equally as good, maybe better, continuously developing that technology that Valve maybe pushed out there first, and do that in a closed system, which is the way that it's always been and it's always happened, and it worked very well. And they have access to a large market than all of those people that initially bought into this device. And very often those people are, for example, at schools because, they get initial discounts and large batch orders or whatever it is. But then they're ending up with devices that a year, 2 years from now are, just ready for the trash. And I would find that a shame. I'm all for it, though. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for it for the way that Valve pushes R&D. But if we're talking about commercial adoption, I think I'm not suggesting that we need to have closed source because we can do open source. And funny thing is that Apple is also built on a Unix system, so there is pushing forward Linux right now is helping Apple as well. So there's no pushback from me on that side. I'm just saying that companies like Microsoft and Apple and those big companies that do have that commercial adaptation because it's their product, compared to, for example, something like Google, which main project was Google is YouTube,
gotcha.
And Valve is Steam. If they come up with hardware, it's kind of like a side project to them.
Yeah,
because it's their bread and butter. It's how they make their bottom line, and when it isn't, it can be a desert. It can be a ghost town.
Yes.
Before long. Yeah, very good point. Well said. One thing I missed to mention before we get off of this is the absolute yacht-sized controller that leaked called Ibis, it's the kind of like the second version of the Steam controller.
That's not discontinued.
Just
already 8 years late.
Let's continue.
I'm telling you, the hops I had to go through to firmware update the Steam controller to interface with Windows. Like, I had to find links from a Steam support person on a Reddit post. Like, there was no main page to help you. It was exactly what Rowdy's saying all about them. But yeah, this chonker of a controller, let's please react to this together. Adam, you've thrown a nice eyebrow there. What are your thoughts about this one?
Where are the grips? There's like a little nubs at the bottom, but there's nothing. Like, I feel like I'm holding a Bible is what it would seem like. It's like barely nub grips. I don't know. What was this from or for or like?
So Jose, you were speaking a little bit earlier about the potential for a cross so I'll say XR device controller. In other words, you can do your PC gaming with it. You can do your VR, AR, MR gaming with this thing. So it's like a ubiquitous, fat ass controller.
Yeah, that looks to me like it's carrying a GPU in there. Like that. Like, I don't know if you guys. There was a company that did a controller that had a CPU on it for the XREALs. That could easily be that. It could just be the Steam Deck CPU in that controller, and then with your headset, you can stream to it.
Oh, interesting. So, are you saying that maybe it's like one of these devices? I've seen these devices from Asia get mentioned to me, where you've got heavy CPU in the controller itself, and then you're saying you'd be streaming from a lightweight headset potentially from your fat ass laptop controller.
Yeah. Which is a good compromise. It's a compromise that I don't want. I hate that. I would like for all the processing to be within the headset or connected through a cable.
Yeah,
but if there is a quote unquote compromise, it's how I currently use my Apple Vision Pro, which is heavy compute tethered wirelessly to the headset.
Yep.
So maybe that's how they kind of get halfway through it. Maybe the headset can have a dedicated antenna that only streams specifically to that controller outside of your wireless router.
Yep. We've seen some things like that before.
Then that, I mean, I don't know. I feel like whether maybe it's thicker versus like longer, I don't know. But this doesn't, it's...
That's a preference thing, Adam. That's everybody has different preferences about
like needs more curvature. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel like design could use some work. If that's the case, I like the idea of it, but not.
Here's
not
a better
like
shot of it that you can see, like, you know, how it looks in a different lighting.
He's smiling. There's something coming. What
I'm worried.
Yeah, better lighting of this beast of a controller. I don't know. I think it's.
Yeah, when I saw that, it looked to me like a Steam Deck without the screen. So they wanted to keep the similar. With the keyboard at the bottom, yeah.
Steam Kick. Or
is that the what is that? An Xbox? What is that?
That's a Steam controller. Oh no, that's a. Whoa, wait, what is that?
What the fuck is that, Rowdy?
I don't know. It was someone who posted it.
Yeah, so somebody 3D printed the shell for the Steam controller, but they incorporated a portable keyboard to it. Yeah.
What the fuck is that thing? It's got two analog sticks.
Yeah.
Is that just a made-up device, or is that a real?
Yeah, they 3D printed a shell for it. That's awesome. Feels horrible in the hand. Actually, no, not really.
What the hell is that? That's so weird.
I actually kind of like that a lot.
Dude, the Steam controller only has one.
Yeah.
All the time? Like, I feel like I would like that if it was something that could come out and to make it smaller when it's not in use, but that looks like a permanent fixture.
Yeah, that's permanently fixed in there, yeah.
Don't give Rowdy any more fuel to feed us more lies.
Yeah,
all right.
Crazy.
Look at him. All right, cool. So anyway, that's our news about Deckard, and whether or not it's going to be a reality next year. Who the feck knows? I have no idea. I do actually. You've talked me into it now, Jose. Even some of the things Rowdy have said, you know, in terms of wanting this to become a reality. So you're giving me what's been referred to as the copium now. I have that, and as a huge fan of Valve's more recent hardware plays, and I was a huge critic to them in the early days. Yeah, I'm bought in. Damn it!
It can be done. It can be done. Like, regardless of if the hardware comes out or it doesn't come out,
That's good
The
that it's
potentials are there. A company has to make it, and I hope it's Valve
That's the right
or
one.
Google. Even if people don't want Google to end up doing it, but there has to be a company that doesn't care if the hardware fails, and those are the two big companies I can think of. Like I don't think of any other big company that can literally build something for it to die, because it has potential of that happening, but yeah.
No, it's really interesting. So cool. That was Deckard. Before we get on to releases, I want to give you just a quick shout to a unique creator many of you may not know. And so as we're heading into the kind of holiday season here, if anyone's looking for a stocking stuffer or something, or just to, on the day of opening gifts and all of this, you get a new VR headset, you're like, well, what do I play? So I wanted to throw this up there, which is, it's a little book called Gibby's Guide. You can get the PDF. It is like an almanac of various different experiences, everything across the spectrum, not just games, like things like experiences, cinematic stuff to relax with or to work out to. Really great cross-section of the industry, kept up to date. It's there available in like a PDF online for free. You can just go download it at gibbysguide.org. But the actual physical printout is available from Amazon worldwide for like $18 US, 13 pounds. So last year I gave them a bit of a thumbs up, and I want to do it again. Purely from, not a sponsor, but purely from I love that there's a dude out there who's compositing this stuff and spending, honestly, years of their life to get that information, keep it up to date, which is a lot of bloody work. I understand, because I played most of those games. And actually keep that information out there. It's the only one who I know who's doing it for this many years and does a great job of it. So big shout to Gibby. If you're into that, that's Gibby's Guide. And so with that, Jose's going to take us away and tell us all about releases.
All right. Okay, so releases this week. First one I have is Action Hero. Action Hero lets you become the protagonist of 5 movies from different genres like adventure, heist, and more. Similar to Superhot VR, time only speeds up when you move, and each film is split into 4 acts with 5 scenes. Taking a hit resets the act, and once you've completed filming, each level unlocks a director's cut with more challenging and wacky scenarios. So this is releasing on December 12th on MetaQuest 2 Plus. So pretty much all quests outside of the 2, no price yet listed.
It's weird and unfortunate that we've had 2 super hot.
Yeah. It's almost exactly the same. Yeah.
But I mean, I tried both because Action Hero was at Gamescom, and I guess it's more of like because Vendetta Forever has their low kill motion thing where you shoot something and then you teleport by kind of whipping to that weapon. And I would say Action Hero is more traditionally like super hot, but they have kind of fun movie trope themes like Indiana Jones or Jurassic Park versus Vendetta Forever is more just not generic, because you can definitely see like certain genres, but some of them are a bit more generic. I don't know how else to describe it. So like I guess I kind of like the visual style of Action Hero maybe a little better. But Vendetta Forever was just like, there's like hundreds of different maps. I don't know. It's an insane amount of content in that thing. I don't remember how many Action Hero is going to have, but it's weird. Like both in the same year, like so close to each other. I don't know.
We have this happen a lot in VR where 2 or 3 companies come out with like the same game. Like recently it was Make It Stable and Does It Stack?
Yeah, like, that was a weird one too.
Feels like the same game came out the same week, basically. It's like, and you play them and you're like, were they like cheating off of each other's homework? Like,
it's such a specific kind of mechanic that's not really, not that interesting in my opinion. But like, why did this become the thing? It's so weird.
Yeah, it's strange. It's kind of reasonable when there's a game that's a huge hit, like a Gorilla Tag, and everybody starts loads of clones make of it. Yeah, Beat Saber, for example. That makes sense. But it's weird that dev studios can like be working on projects. And the thing that I don't understand is, how do the platform content people not stage it differently? No, how do they not like say, oh, this is going to come out and then we're going to wait 2 months before your app gets greenlit to come out? Like, why are you maybe it's a fairness thing, and they're just saying, okay, you both release at the same time. If you do well, great. Otherwise, it's on you guys. It's not on us. Don't blame your failure on us. Sorry. It's weird. Anyway,
I like the idea of a developer just working on both sides, making the same exact game.
That would be funny. You mean like a contractor who's
Like a
working on both
contractor who
projects?
works on both games.
Dodgy devs.
That sounds awesome. But yeah, that's Action Hero. Next game I have is Home Sports. Supporting both VR and mixed reality gameplay, Home Sports is the latest title from Demio studio Resolution Games. Reminiscent of Wii Sports, this upcoming collection supports solo play plus local and online multiplayer for up to 3 players and contains 5 different sports: pickleball, hockey, bowling, mini golf, and badminton. Releasing on December 11th for both the Quest 3 and Quest 3S. Price still not listed.
I can only think of we've got hockey at home kind of a meme. Like,
I wish we could
hockey.
stream the music, because the music also like nails it home that they're like heavily inspired by Wii Sports.
I played this at Meta Connect actually. Yeah. It was interesting being a goalie. It's like if you walked up to a air hockey table, right? But instead you were a goalie. You had 2 goalies, right? And then you were like hitting the puck that's skirting across that skiddy surface. That's what it was. It was like full body air hockey for that. And then I played the badminton, which was very nice as well. But it was funny because I advertised this to my wife because like we love, we just did spatial ops. We love like resolution games.
Oh, so this has shared spatial anchors or?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it functions. Yeah. And I said, hey, we should try this like home sports game. And she's like, I don't like sports. I was like,
yeah.
It's like Wii Sports. And she's like, well, that's a terrible name then. I was like, okay, just write them off. I don't know. I think it's quite a generic name. It's not really easy to remember is my only issue with it. Because like Spatial Ops has kind of like some stick to it. So does Demio or Akron. Like they generally pick better names for their games. This one sounds like it's a one of those shovel games that,
yes,
you know what I mean? It's overly generic, and I get they were going for the Wii Sports thing, but I think the problem is people are just not going to remember that this thing exists after it's out. That's my biggest concern for them. Is just the name.
Probably the lawyers didn't let them do Wii Sports for VR or Wii Sports VR.
Maybe not. But
yeah, that's Home Sports.
What date is that coming out?
That December 11th for both Quest 3 and Quest 3S.
Nice.
All right, so the next game I have is Bridge Constructor Studio. Bridge Constructor Studio is a must-have for fans of engineering puzzles and creative sandbox games. Whether you're designing a sturdy structural masterpiece or experimenting with wild and weird works, the possibilities are endless. That's releasing on December 5th, MetaQuest 2, 3, and 3S. Have you guys played any Bridge Constructor games?
I love Bridge Construction games. Yes. It's a sick fantasy, whatever you want to call it. That's my kink right there, man. Just playing as a bridge engineer, anything. I love those games. I had no idea this was coming to VR.
Yeah.
Feckin' A. Hell yeah.
That doesn't make Zim go limp.
Definitely not.
God damn it, the callbacks this episode. I thought I was going to get away with it.
I would just want to cause chaos in this. I don't think I would actually want to build anything. I just want to watch everything.
It's about the beauty of the construction and making like World of Goo. Oh my god, I haven't played World of Goo 2. What is wrong with me? I can't believe I forgot that game came out this year.
Yeah,
but yeah, absolutely.
I'm not gonna say anything to that one.
Yeah, no, that one. Everything. Yeah, right now Zim's world is World of Goo right now with Bridge Constructor Studio.
No, thanks to Bridge Constructor, it will definitely be a World of Goo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hate all of you. All right, let's move swiftly on, please.
All right, so that was Bridge Constructor Studios. $11 US, about £9, December 5th. And the last game I have, I wanted to add this one. I wasn't going to add it, but we started talking about hand tracking games earlier. Drakir, the first hand tracking ARPG. Every gesture, every moment matters as you explore, battle, and conquer in richly detailed fantasy worlds. Our mission is to make Drakir the definitive hand tracking experience, setting a new standard for depth and engagement in this category. That's a quote from the developers. That's releasing on December 5th on Quest 2, 3, 3S, and the Pro. Pre-order now for $12 US. That's about £9.50. Regular price is $15 US, 12 pounds. And as you can see on the trailer, it is a hand gesture heavy game.
What the hell?
Naruto on steroids.
Dude,
Yeah, what the hell?
That's what I wanted to. That's exactly, Rowdy. You nailed it. This made me want a Naruto game in VR.
I do have to comment on the title though, because like there have been multiple Magic games that do this like hand tracking thing, but like I love how they went like the first hand tracking ARPG. It's like you know those basketball games, like where you like he's the first player to score like 7 points in the first 33 minutes of the game, who's under 19 years and 3 months old. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, you always find something. So now because there's a ton of games that have done this very well as well.
It's so dangerous, particularly in VR, because there's been so many pockets to claim to be the first.
Yeah.
About anything. This is just a weird ass looking game. I have not seen another game.
It's so spastic.
Spasticky slap happy. It's so weird. Like all the little gestures. This really reminds me of Orbis VR when we were doing like spells. Do you remember having to create spells and then tame your dragon or whatever it was? And then that all thankfully died off, and I was very happy to not have to draw wands like Harry Potter anymore. Yeah. This is bizarre. The thing I like, the problem with this kind of game is that it doesn't know when you're not signaling to it. Yeah. It's the same thing like with if I'm out with my Ray-Bans and I'm talking to them, it doesn't know when I'm taking a moment to talk to my kid or my wife or something. It thinks I'm always commanding it, and so it will respond accordingly. And it's like it doesn't know if you're petting the dog or grabbing a drink or something. Like you've got to make these fervorous hand gestures constantly.
It does build a good solid like argument of how cool it would be to like incorporate similar this kind of technology to other games, that instead of like doing like for example like Metro 2033, like doing the whole backpack mechanic, it will be kind of cool to just do like a circle hand gesture. Now you got a light or something like that.
What?
Maybe not Metro specifically.
Like they have it now where because you can map your space, say you throw a fireball and then your wall is singed, why I want to destroy my house. I don't know why I'm so destructive this podcast.
They should have gone with the title like, the first VR game for blind people who know sign language, right?
Literally.
That's definitely going to be like the first VR game for blind people who know sign language.
Oh man, the better you are at like talking with your hands, the more powerful you are. Exactly. That sounds actually kind of badass.
I would win at that. I love talking with my hands. I do it all the time. I get nervous.
To be honest, that was the coolest part about Orbis, was that when you learned those complex spell patterns, if you came back to play the game and you could remember those, even a higher level spell like an incantation, it would allow you. You weren't like. You didn't have a glass ceiling blocking you because you weren't a level 7. If you knew the level 7 symbol, you could cast a level 7 spell.
Oh, okay. I was so confused. I thought you meant you could use it. I'm like, outside of the game? Like, do the spells work? I was so confused. It's outside of his VR headset, just making things levitate with the hand gestures. Don't worry, guys. I learned this in VR.
Your face was priceless, Jose. It was good. I was like, he's thinking something that I'm not thinking right now. What's he on about? Okay. I'd love to bring magic into the real world. Maybe one day we'll have it, but not yet. Cool. How much was that?
That at no price listed yet. Actually, no. Drakir, the first hand tracking ARPG, available on all quests. Pre-order $12 US, £9.50 on sale right now. So.
All right. Well, yeah, experimented for a tenner. No problem. Sounds good. Yeah. Cool. Do you want to recap?
Yeah.
Give us a recap.
Real quick is Action Hero releasing on December 12th. Then we got Home Sports releasing on December 11th. Bridge Constructor Studio releasing on December 5th. And Drakir, the first hand tracking ARPG, releasing on December 5th.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jose, for always bringing us exciting titles. You always give me something. Speaking of which, last podcast, Jose had suggested that I pick up a little pinball game in the Flatland called Xenotilt, which is incredible. If you think pinball games are boring, this one's for you. It's Xeno with an X, not a Z. So Xeno Tilt. My God, I didn't realize it was only just out, but dude, that game is amazing. I've played it. My kids have gotten past 50 million in the tables. It's such a cool game. So thank you for the recommendation. I wanted to echo again.
Oh, anytime.
That was super cool. Well, anyway, that's the meat off the bone. So let's go ahead and recap the show times, and then we're going to get ourselves out of here. I want to thank again Synth Riders for sponsoring today's podcast. Thank you very much, Kluge. And this podcast runs every 2 weeks on Saturday on YouTube and Twitch. Timestamps are inbound, and an audio version lands midweek on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you happen to join us for the live show, this time it wasn't in 7 segments. Thank you, Rowdy, for keeping it all in one. It must have been that bookcase. And we appreciate you hanging with us today. Thank you, crew. That's it for this episode. See you all on the next FReality Podcast.